Hello, kids. Welcome in. It is the Matt Murphy Radio Show underway for another day. Happy to have you with us. 12:04. May I be the first to say good afternoon. Here we are. Here we go. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Many different ways to listen to the radio broadcast or watch the radio program. We'll talk about those things coming up in just a moment after I say pleasantries. Thursday, January 11th, 2024. Pleased you've decided to join us. It's our episode 489. And they said it would not last on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I don't know who they are, but what do they know? All right, let's find a way for you to listen to the show for the full 3 hours. You can obviously listen on radio, 99.7 FM. You're also invited to download us and take us wherever you go on an internet streaming platform of your choosing. All you need to do, whatever it is. I mean, obviously, we've got an app going on. You can find that at 99.7 or 997WTN.com. No point. 997WTN.com. That's our web address. And there we point you to the streaming opportunities like, the usual, iHeart, Spotify, et cetera. You can also download our app and take us wherever you'd like to go on the Super Talk 99.7 WTN side of things. Then there's Super Talk TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, brought to you by F&M Bank. F&M Bank chat line up and running, unmonitored though it may be. Join us on Super Talk TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, where you can see my ugly mug for a full 3 hours of the broadcast day from noon until 3, Monday through Friday on Super Talk. After us, it's The Drive with Brian Wilson, and we appreciate you being with us on this Thursday. Bell K chooses not to participate in one of those platforms. That would be the television side of things. He's on radio. He's busy. He's screening your telephone calls, making sure that everything that comes out of our speakers sounds as good as humanly possible. He's doing yeoman's work, and he's also in charge of titling our television episode, and episode 489 is entitled.
It was inspired by you.
Okay.
Directly inspired by you.
All right.
Matt Murphy, Prince Albert amongst men. Libertarian lunch, noon to 3, stainless steel.
Yesterday I got Prince Albert, and today I got Master Bader.
I just want to say before it all comes down, it's been great working with you.
No, it's not coming down. Those are two words. So if you were listening to the cross between Mr. Hand and myself, I mentioned that I believed that Donald Trump was just that. Now, if you understand the concept of baiting a field or baiting a pond, baiting in general, as in to draw the thing that you wish to catch in to your goal, then Donald Trump is a master at that. So would that not make him a master baiter? Of course it would. I consider myself to be a novice in this field, so I would be a novice baiter. What? Why is everybody laughing? So last night, I
gotta go.
You do not have to go. You're going to stay there, and you're going to take this. You deserve it. All of you. Every single one of you. I didn't do this. You did this. Now, 3581 says, Matt, I super enjoyed listening to you. Jim says, Matt, it was good listening to you. Have a great day. Jason wrote, I'm listening on Tinder. You guys are everywhere.
Jason wins. Jason wins hand down. Jason wins.
Well, Jason, if that's the case, swipe right for God's sakes. Or how? I don't know. Which is the good one?
Right, I think.
Okay,
I'm pretty sure it's right.
I've got no clue. I asked my wife the other night while I squirrel myself. Squirrel. We were watching the third season of Only Murders in the Building and enjoying it. And there are ads, despite the fact that it's on Hulu or whatever streaming platform. There are ads that pop up, and one of the ads that kept popping up was a Tinder ad. And I've never been on Tinder in my life. And so I asked whether or not, Tinder is a platform for dating generally, right? But it became known as a platform that kind of opened up the idea of, look, we all know that some of you just want to hook up. If you just want to hook up, tell the person you just want to hook up, and we'll get you with somebody that just wants to hook up too, right? Is that
pretty
much the basic concept?
Yeah, that's
true.
But
if you're not interested in, relations of that sort for some time down the road, then you can say that as well. Anyway, so there's I got look, people are calling me on my phone. Should I answer this
No.
while I'm on the air?
No. Remember what happened last time you did that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's true. So I guess I won't answer it while I'm on the air then. Anyway, so yes, we got lots going on today, to include Donald Trump last night on stage with Fox News at a town hall. That was overlaying the Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis discussion. I don't know. I did not watch. I caught up with some clips earlier this morning, and it was exactly what I have expected. So the reason that this got brought up and the reason that we were talking about baiting individuals into doing what you want them to do, I'm curious if Donald Trump was doing that last night with his conversation about his vice presidential candidate. I want to discuss that with you today and find out from you if you believe that he, in fact, does have a selection, who that might be. I would tend to believe that obviously it's not going to be Chris Christie. I don't think it's going to be anyone running for president of the United States, including Vivek Ramaswamy. I do believe that Vivek Ramaswamy will have a place in Donald Trump's in his political orbit. I don't know exactly what that would be, but I think there will be a place for him in a Donald Trump cabinet or somewhere in the Trump administration, but I don't know that that will be vice president of the United States. That's just my initial take on it. I like Vivek. I like what Vivek does with regard to the media. I think he is very forceful in his pushback on the media bias that has existed for a long, long time and was only exacerbated in 2016 when Donald Trump, or 2015 really, when Donald Trump came down the elevator. Mostly 2016 when he actually became president or president-elect of the United States of America. And it's only gotten worse since then. Vivek would serve well as, I think he's better than a press secretary. Not to knock former press secretaries like Sarah Huckabee Sanders and others, but I think he's better than that level of a position within the Trump administration, but I don't know that he's vice president material. I do think that maybe a Kristi Noem. Is it Kristi? Is that right?
Yeah.
Why does that feel wrong? Is it Kristi? It's Kristi. It's Kristi. Of South Dakota might be a possibility. I do think that it is important for Donald Trump to pick someone that's not a white male. And I hate to say that. I hate it because I'm a best person for the job kind of guy, but I understand the reality, and Donald Trump understands the reality of winning elections and how best to win elections. One of the things I like most about him, he is a man of courage and conviction, but he also understands that the goal is to win, which is why his answer last night on the abortion question was masterful. Let me give you a take on this. Now, we're not getting into it via calls until a little bit later on in the show, but I do want to get your take on it later on in the show with telephone calls and super text and all of that. But I'll just tell you in short, Donald Trump was on point. It's like he was a guy that was pacing himself in 2023. He was a little bit all over the place in the latter half of 2023, had a lot going on in 2023, and I see the first sit down with him in 2024, and he's like, it's game time. He's got his game face on. He's affable. He's smiling at people. He's communicating with people. He's on message, and he's on point on the issues that matter to the American people. We're talking about the economy, border security, foreign entanglements, and energy. Those four issues will win him re-election to the presidency of the United States of America if he stays on point. And all Joe Biden's got is me, Nazi, me, racist, me, Trump, me, democracy. That's all he's got. That's all he's got. I have yet to be excited about this presidential race, and now I am. And that leads me to this. I have told you that, and it's pretty obvious at this point, the way that all of this shook out, I stuck to my guns on this point, and Bell K will have my back, because I know some of you don't trust me as far as you can throw me, and you can't throw me very far, but Bell K will have my back on this. I told you throughout 2023 not to pick a primary candidate until 2024, didn't I?
You've always said that about any election.
The best, the most valuable thing that you have is what?
Your choice, your
vote. Your vote. And once you give that vote over, you don't have any power any longer to affect really outcomes or affect agenda items or affect the direction of the campaign, your vote is precious. Hold on to that vote. But I'm ready to tell you, and it's pretty obvious, I'm all in on Donald Trump. If this is the guy, especially as we see him last night, he was succinct. He was not holding anything back. He was funny when he needed to be. He was on point when it came to energy and the border security issues that are happening right now under the Biden administration. And even the abortion question, which might ding him in some conservative circles, I thought he was good at that as well. So I'm ready to tell you, I mean, it's pretty obvious who the nominee is going to be, and I'm going to be all in on the guy. And I'm wondering who you think his VP selection will be. All right, he's got a lot of court entanglements that he's dealing with. As a matter of fact, last night, town hall, today, a court visit. We'll tell you about that today. I want to talk to you a little bit about Anthony Fauci and some of the things that went down with Fauci over the last several days. I've been meaning to get to this for a couple of days now. We'll also cover some of the state issues that we dove into yesterday deeply. We were all in the weeds on these state issues yesterday, and I want to reset the narrative at 12:35 today because I think it's important that we all understand what's going on at our General Assembly. Speaking of, Jody Barrett's going to stop by. He's bringing us another freshman representative, and I don't know who it is. Capley? Is that right? I always like meeting new folks. I do. Speaking of meeting new people, you're invited to be a part of the Reagan dinner, Davidson County GOP. We had Lonnie Spivak on yesterday. Several of you asking me about that, and I posted it up on my social media platforms. You can find it on the X machine. You can also find it on Facebook, where you can get tickets and how that all shakes out. I will be emceeing the event, and Glenn Jacobs, Mayor Glenn Jacobs, will be the keynote speaker. There will be other speakers to include Congressman Andy Ogles. So I'm excited about that. That's happening on the 25th. That is a Thursday, if I'm not mistaken, later portion of the month. So that's all on my socials for those of you.
What time is all that the stuff start? The Reagan dinner.
Hold on.
Is it? It's like an evening thing.
It's like a
right?
6. It's like a 6.
I wonder if we could get Glenn to come into the studio when he's in town that day.
I'm sure we have an opportunity.
That would be cool. I'd love to meet him in person.
All right, now Greg McElroy is canceling on me because he's got Bryce Young. Well, that's great. 10-4.
Thanks.
Let me know if you have another window.
You can be interviewing Glenn on the air, and I can come in with a metal chair and whack him in the back of the head.
What are you talking about while I'm texting?
I said you can be interviewing Glenn on the air.
I checked out for 3 seconds, and I came back, and you're talking about whacking somebody in the head.
Yeah, Glenn Jacobs. You interview him, and I'll come in with the metal chair and whack him in the back of the head.
All right. Well, no, I was Greg McElroy is not very happy with the organization of the SEC Network or ESPN. So I'm friends with McElroy. You probably know Greg. If you're a college football fan, we wanted to have Greg on to talk about the retirement of Nick Saban and all of the shakeout in football more generally with all of the coaching changes. Belichick is fired, or a mutual decision was made. Pete Carroll out in Seattle. Some of the greatest coaches in football history. Carroll, to a greater degree, Belichick, and obviously Nick Saban is widely considered to be the GOAT, certainly in college football. They're all out, and that's a shakeup that goes beyond the world of sports radio. And so we were going to talk to Greg McElroy about that, but Greg has now been pulled on to – he's having a conversation with Bryce Young right now, who is a former Alabama quarterback. So I'll let that happen, and we'll figure out where we're going from there. Maybe we'll have him on, maybe not. At 1 o'clock today, Jody Barrett and a yet-to-be-named representative along with Jody. That's coming up at about 1:05 right after the news. You on the telephones, as always, all day long. And the super text line, 615-737-9986, 737 WWTN. If you'd like to call, you may do so. If you'd like to text, you may do so that way as well. We'd love to speak with you. We will speak about, in the absence of McElroy, we will speak in a moment about rules and transparency as it applies to the General Assembly, and how sadly I believe some are being duped into believing the Republicans are the enemy here. I don't really have a dog in this fight because I'm my own guy. I'm just an outsider looking in. But I want to reset where I'm coming from when I tell you, I'm not wagging my finger at anyone, but I'm telling you, you're being led down a bad path if you think the Republicans, i.e. Cameron Sexton, if they're the real problem, if you think they're the real problem, if you think some of the Republicans are the problem in the General Assembly, I just have a disagreement with that. I have all the respect in the world for you, but I disagree with you. We'll talk about it next on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Look, I know what you do, fellas. If you reach a certain age and you've noticed hair loss in your life, maybe you're noticing more and more hair in the hairbrush after you brush your hair in the mornings, or perhaps you're noticing it in the shower. Maybe it's while you're shaving. You kind of look and you can see those spots on your head where there is thinning. Well, you don't have to live with this, and I certainly don't think you should. I think you need to go to the proven commodity right here in Nashville, Tennessee. That is PAI Medical, and We Grow Hair. We Grow Hair offers amazing results, and trust me, your looks are important. First impressions are important. Let's find out why thousands of men have chosen We Grow Hair above anybody else in the industry in Middle Tennessee. They've been around for 26 years, mind you. They do a great job. I've been there. I've visited. I've gone through the process, and I think I'm going to get some of the laser treatments. Just laser treatments are preventative in nature to make sure that I don't have any thinning in my life moving forward. I'm 50 years old. I'm looking pretty good. I was told that at We Grow Hair, but I just want to make sure that that continues for the long term. If you have an issue, if you want to talk about grafting, if you want to talk about the different procedures that they do at We Grow Hair, I encourage you to set up that free private consultation today by calling 615-376-6010. 615-376-6010. Or go online to their website, WeGrowHair.com. Tell them Matt Murphy sent you to WeGrowHair.com. Hey, folks, it's Matt Murphy, and I want to tell you a little about Tennessee Men's Clinic and something that affects at least 50% of men as we mature, and that is trouble or difficulty in the bedroom. And I'm going to go no further than that, but to tell you that there's nothing to be ashamed about. If it affects half the guys in America, probably half the guys in the world, but I know half the guys in America, it's not something that you want to wait on to get fixed. I know that guys don't like going to the doctor, but Tennessee Men's Clinic was created in 2014 to take care of men just like you. For a decade, their urologists and providers at Tennessee Men's Clinic have done this day in, day out, every day. They specialize in helping you, gentlemen, get that energy back. They have weight loss treatments that also truly change lives. Their urologist-based practice with multiple providers is focused on outcomes and treatments with high rate success, and their success rate is as high as 90%. Many men come after other things have failed them, and that's all well and good. It is time to feel amazed and hit your goals in 2024. Understand, let's book same-day or next-day appointments, and let's get you treated. Call 615-208-9090. That's 615-208-9090. If you're low in energy or if you're having, a frustrating time in other aspects of your life, and once again, I'll leave it right there, man. You know what I'm talking about. Book the appointment today. Don't wait another moment. Go to TennesseeMen'sClinic.com. That's TennesseeMen'sClinic.com. I don't know that Donald Trump has a selection in mind. By the way, we're kind of calling an audible here, to use the football parlance, because, the problem there is somebody's tried to pull this off. Am I crooked on the television side of things, by the way? Am I not? Am I okay? I'm all right? I'm all good? I'm not. It looks crooked.
Yeah, other than being ugly.
Well, sure. Thank you, Bill. I appreciate that.
But, yeah, the framing is perfect.
Long-haired hippie type, won't even go on TV telling me that I'm ugly. I don't put up with that. 615-737-9986. It's 1226 on Supertalk 99.7 WTN. So, Matt, I would like to get your opinion on why Vivek hasn't gained more traction in his campaign, considering he's young, articulate, seems to be knowledgeable on key issues. He's like Trump without the baggage. There's also a certain level of naivete in certain aspects of what he talks about, and I'm not damning him for that. I think with this type of experience, Donald Trump came in gangbusters, and he just blew through the narrative that someone that had never served in public office could not serve as president of the United States. It takes a special kind of person, and Donald Trump is a one-off in that regard. So I think if people get to know Vivek a little more so than sound bites, I think he will become more and more and more appealing. I think there is just a feeling that he is Trump light, or he is Trump, perhaps without the baggage, but also without the experience and without the wherewithal to know how to navigate what is sure to be a fierce and forceful pushback on the part of the deep state, whomever is the next president of the United States. All right, 4269 says, I have a booger in my nose. Is that true, Bell? Is that true?
Honestly, I can't tell. I can't see you. It's
I want to believe that 4269 is just messing with me. I'm going to choose
I don't
to
see
believe
anything.
I'm going to choose to believe that. But it's making me. But it accomplished the goal. I'll tell you that. 4269, congratulations. You did what you wanted to do, because now I'm worried about it, and I'm not thinking about anything else except getting to the bottom of the hour so I can go to the bathroom and make sure that that's not the case. One way or the other, I want to talk about rules and transparency, and I think this is very important, because yesterday, I understand that I'm passionate about what we do on a daily basis. I hope that's the reason that you like the show. And I assure you, if I'm your Huckleberry, you'll love me. On those issues in which we agree, you love me in your corner. You want me in your corner. You need me in your corner. I'm your pit bull. I'll go for them. I'll go for the throat. I promise you that. But those times that we disagree, I get a lot of that back, because people get very angry at me. And when I tell groups of people that I believe that they're being duped, and I do believe that's happening right now in politics in the state of Tennessee, that makes people angry. And I understand. I get it. But all I can do is be truthful to who I am, my life experience, and what I analyze and how I believe what's going on is happening, whether it be in state politics or national politics. And I believe that there are Tennesseans that are being led astray based on a group of people who have been duped by leftists. And I'm going to explain what I mean in just a moment. It is 12:30. You're welcome to chime in. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. You know, when Nick Saban retired yesterday, or when the announcement was made that he retired yesterday, I heard no more than 2-3 people, well, no less than 2-3 people, I should say. Oh, he was the foundation of that institution that is Alabama football, the foundation of Alabama football. Anytime you hear about indispensable individuals, you hear that, the foundation of football. Well, when USS comes to your home, you know that you're getting the foundation experts, and your foundation matters when it comes to your house. And if you have water issues, that's not going to stop on its own, and that's going to cause a foundation problem. Now, waterproofing is something that many Tennesseans have done. If you've not, you need to investigate the idea of encapsulating or waterproofing your home to make sure that your foundation is rock solid and you don't have mold or mildew that could cause health issues for you and your family. Secondarily, foundation repair. You need a company that's done it for a hot minute. You don't need a fly-by-night guy that doesn't really know what they're doing. USS, United Structural Systems, they've been around for 30 years. Since 1994, they've helped over 25,000 customers, and you could be the next. Bottom line, they know what they're doing, and they want to help you. They will fix what ails your home, and that is just about it. 615-488-7855, 488-7855. They guarantee their best. Go online to USSTN.com, USSTN.com. We'll get to Donald Trump last night announcing that he has a VP selection. He's got a person. Not going to tell you who that person is. Who do you think that might be? I have a good idea who I think it is. Belle, you want to whisper in your ear who you think I think it is? I want to see.
Honestly, no, because my assumption at this point was that there was a really good chance of it being Vivek. And I think out of everybody that is running, he would be the front runner. But I'm off the top of my head, I don't know who else.
You want to go ahead and do this? You want me to go ahead and throw it out there?
Yeah.
I will. Libertarian lunch, after all. Some folks got to go back to work. I think Tim Scott's a far better selection than Vivek.
I think he would be a great choice.
I think Tim Scott's got the.
But you have to remember though, you're completely forgetting. Trump is an avid racist white nationalist,
right,
and I don't know if he would want
a
man of color, as his vice president.
That's true. He would want, a lily white person like Vivek.
That is like fond of hoods.
Right. I love it when white people, over the last week and a half, white people have challenged Vivek on how racist he is.
Yeah.
It was like,
it's
okay.
ridiculous.
Okay.
It's beyond stupidity.
I don't know exactly how that works, but okay. I mean, because, they get to do that now.
You are the brown face of white nationalism.
Right. Which makes no sense, but that's okay. We're the media, and we make no sense. But first, I want to do this. Because I have such great respect for each and every one of you. And in 2024, it occurs to me, and I was thinking about this driving home yesterday afternoon. It occurs to me that we have lost something in our discourse. I understand that it's very much us versus them with regard to our conversations in the United States of America. But sadly, there are some groups and some individuals that try to exploit that we are dealing with in 2024 and use it for their own power or purposes. And it's wrong. Why do I say it's us versus them? There's just such a clear dividing line about how certain groups believe we're going to make America great, see success in the United States of America, and for many of us, return us to the exceptionalism that we saw over most of our lifetimes. So there's very much an us versus them. You either believe in border security or you don't. You either believe in energy independence or you don't. You either believe that fossil fuels are still vital and important from an energy perspective or you don't. And some, right here in the state of Tennessee, and Middle Tennessee particularly, are parlaying that into anger toward the wrong people, it occurs to me. And I wanted a narrative reset for a moment because yesterday I dove deep into this rules business. And I know that half the audience, their eyes started glazing over. I'm talking about committee rules and whether you can get something through on a voice vote or a roll call vote. And people are like, what are you talking about? I'm talking about three entities in state politics that you need to know about that are involved in this debate about transparency in government. You have a supermajority of Republicans. You have the minority, Democrats. And you have outside conservatives that are wagging their fingers at how the conservatives inside of the body are doing their jobs. I don't belong to any of those groups. I don't belong to any groups, really, that would have me a member. I shy away from that sort of thing. I am fiercely independent. And so I try to not make myself a part of any of these stories or storylines. I comment on them. And I believe that I have an ability, and I hope that I do, to comment exterior to the inner workings of how all of this shakes out in a way that makes it clearer for you on the outside. I call myself a libertarian with a small L. What I mean is I'm fiercely independent. But my goal here on this show, no matter what we're talking about, I try to have a good time. We try to entertain you. We try to inform you as to what's going on in your world, to cut through the clutter and get to the truth. all of those things are so. But more than anything, I look at my mission statement every single day that I come on air is to reassert the reason that we have such a great country that we were born into. And that is the fierce belief in independent thinking, in your independent ability to act in a way of your choosing, so long as you don't deprive others of their rights, to exercise those rights given to you by God, to chart a destiny of your own choosing. That's it. The brilliance of our founding fathers and those who understood that we cannot fully exercise we can't exercise God's free will without having a nation that allows us the same. And obviously, we're not talking about your will to deny others their rights and their liberties and those things that they've been granted by God as well, even an ability not to believe. One of the brilliant factors of our founding fathers was they understood in order to exercise full free will, you have the ability to not believe that your rights come from God at all. But the rights exist nonetheless. Nonetheless. That's what I do. That's what I do. And I do it independent of any groups or any parties. And frankly, I do it independent of this radio station. And what I mean by that is my commentary here on my portion of the day is my own. I represent Cumulus Nashville. I represent Supertalk 99.7 WTN. And they have certain expectations that we have discussed about how I represent that company and this brand. And based on how we started the show, I don't know that I'm living up to that, right? Master, you get it. But I've never been told what to believe. I've never been told what to say and what not to say. Never. In 24 years now of doing what I do. And if I were told, I would have to weigh the subject matter that we're talking about versus my ability to move on to do something else. And I would weigh those things. I'm not saying that I would make a knee-jerk reaction, but all of that to say, my mission statement singularly is for you. For you. And I know that many of you sometimes don't believe that because I am a pit bull in this arena. I do not suffer fools gladly. And I believe that I'm right. On whatever position I take, I believe that I'm right. And if I believe that I'm right and you disagree with me and I believe that you're wrong, sometimes I understand that I get a little forceful in trying to convince you that you're wrong and I'm right. I understand that. I enjoy it. I enjoy that part of the arena.
Why would you take a stand on something you thought was wrong?
Well, that's right. I had somebody tell me one time, you know what your problem is? You always think you're right. I don't think that's a problem.
I did want to add, though, because I do care about your feelings and your perspective on things. For the record, you're not a real libertarian. And I just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you, Bell.
To make you feel better about yourself.
Good. You're very nice. That's a little call back to yesterday's conversation about what a libertarian is and what a libertarian's not. And if you think you're a libertarian, you're not a libertarian unless another libertarian tells you you're not a libertarian.
Or at least a real one.
Yeah, you're not a real libertarian. Why do I bring all of this up? I am not beholden to anybody in this state, in government. Not a single person. And I don't have any agenda outside of what I just stated. My agenda is to present the truth and allow you to decide for yourself where you are on these matters. Now, if I have a failure as a talk show host, it is that I do get too forceful at times on simple matters of disagreement. And so I will say regarding yesterday's conversation about rules and transparency that I understand that there are some, I call you purity conservatives, right? That if you're pure as the wind-driven snow when it comes to conservatism, and if anyone deviates off the reservation in one little bit or one little way, then you declare them to be non-conservatives because they disagree with you on one matter. Now, I can understand why some matters are so big that you would think, yeah, that's the case. But we throw this rhino nonsense around way too often about matters of disagreement. Secondarily, I understand why some conservatives might be concerned about using voice votes in committee to get bills past committee. But here's what I believe is happening. Because whether you know it or not, there's this bubble of frustration or anger, and there's a lot of finger pointing about leadership, and there's a lot of individuals exterior to the General Assembly screaming about how Republicans aren't Republican enough. And to that I say, what in the hell do you want? What more do you possibly want out of our government? Now, I fully recognize that there are passionate people that say that they want true constitutional carry. For example, I'm just using this as an example, okay? That they want true constitutional carry in the state of Tennessee. I get it. I think it's a solution in search of a problem, but I get it. I understand that there are some people that are genuinely concerned about roll call votes in committee, but I feel like much more than that, there's a lot of people outside of the state capitol that have decided that they know better about what a conservative is than the conservatives who got elected to those positions, and so they're going to yell and scream about anything because they just haven't gotten their way. All of this to say, so yesterday I bring up this dynamic. You have a group of liberals that want to cause chaos in the state legislature, in the General Assembly. They are led by J.R. Clemens. Gloria Johnson is a part of it. Jones is a part of it. Pearson's a part of it. I don't know if Democrat leadership is leading the charge here, but I think those four are clearly in the bag for chaos during the General Assembly. They have no interest in the passage of legislation. I'm just telling you my perspective on this through my years of experience. These Democrats do not care about passing legislation because they know they can't get any of their legislation passed. They do not care about advancing the cause of freedom or liberty because they don't care about freedom or liberty. They do not care about making the lives of Tennessee people better because the only ways that they know to do that are ways of socialism, and they can't get any of that through a Republican-dominated or a conservative-dominated legislative process. They are left with making names for themselves. I truly believe that they do not care about people except for the people that they see in a mirror looking back at them. And so they set out to cause chaos in the General Assembly as the General Assembly came into session earlier this week. And Republican conservatives took the bait. They're trying to get conservatives and Republicans to fight amongst themselves, and it's working. And I pointed that out yesterday, and for that, I was told that I was a liberal and I wasn't a really conservative, although I've never classified myself as a conservative. Folks, understand something. You get to decide for yourselves where you fall on these matters, whether they be minute in nature or whether they be big picture matters. I can just tell you what I believe to be true at the time that it comes out of my mouth. And I'm telling you that the Democrats set out with an agenda to create chaos. They don't give one damn about transparency in the legislative process. They don't. But they used that because they understood that there was a legitimate, kind of a disagreement as to how to manage things in committee, and they pointed it out knowing that some conservatives would take the bait and turn Sexton and his leadership team into the enemies. Is Sexton perfect? Nope, not by a long shot. I thought he mishandled the end of the general session. I thought he mishandled some of the special session. At the same time, I don't know what I would have done differently. In a lot of ways, Sexton is merely a reflection on the body itself. In other words, he's just there to call balls and strikes. So when you've got Justin Jones just lying about things and a lot of conservatives believing Justin Jones, I'm going to call that out. I'm going to call that out. You can either let the distinct minority in the General Assembly rule the day and rule the session, or dismiss them and go about the people's business. I would prefer you go about the people's business and say to hell with organizations that don't seem interested in the people's business. And you're darn right I'm talking about Tennessee Stands, and you're darn right I'm talking about the Gary Hummels of the world. These people that sit on the sidelines, they lose their spines when they are challenged on these issues. I don't begrudge them their point of view. I just don't think they're being honest actors. I do not believe that those types of individuals, and I'm not going to name any more names. I do not believe that those types of individuals have the best interest of the people of Tennessee in their hearts. Otherwise, they would have the good sense to understand that they are being duped by the Democrats. They are in concert with the Democrats to hurt this state, to sow chaos at the steps of the Capitol in Tennessee, a red state, a ruby red state that elects conservatives to office. There are purity conservative groups working in concert with the Democrats, whether they know it or not, to sow chaos in this state and to create a volatile situation that could explode at any time. And it's wrong. And I'm just telling you the truth. And you can call me any name in the book. But what I'm saying is so. It's 52 after the hour on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy. Let's talk for a moment about your sleep and whether or not you're getting enough sleep, and perhaps why you might not be getting enough sleep. I want to talk about sleep apnea. I want to talk about Dr. Stephen Paas and the Sleep Apnea and TMJ Solution Center. Because many of you perhaps don't know that you have sleep apnea. I want you to investigate this fact. Do you snore? Do you stop snoring on occasion at night? Has your partner noticed that you snore, then you stop? And then you catch your breath and you start snoring again. These are telltale signs of sleep apnea. And if you've already tried the CPAP machines and have decided that these don't work for you, I have an alternative for you. As a matter of fact, Dr. Stephen Paas has an alternative for you. You know, I snore at night, and I want to make sure that everything's A-OK with me and sleep apnea. It is why I'm having a visit with Dr. Stephen Paas next week, next Tuesday morning, as a matter of fact. Advanced training and techniques. Dr. Paas accepts BCBS, Aetna, Cigna, United Healthcare, TRICARE for the military. I'm telling you, Dr. Paas can eliminate or dramatically reduce snoring. As mentioned with a recent study, your bed partner doesn't get as much sleep as they should because of your snoring. So it's time to deal with this. Friends, let's go to Dr. Paas. 2 locations to serve you, Brentwood and Murfreesboro. Dr. Stephen Paas and the TMJ or the Sleep Apnea and TMJ Solution Center. Go to drpaas.com for more information. Tell them I sent you. Dr. Paas, POSS.com. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. A lot of reaction to my diatribe. I did get this. Someone said, such a lie. I'm tired of Matt Murphy fighting true conservatives. Bring back Chris Hand. Well, Chris Hand will be back between 9 and noon tomorrow. Here's the question. It's all about your definition of what a true conservative is, right? I'm not a conservative. I've not claimed to be a conservative. I am a libertarian. I work with conservatives, and the last time I voted for anybody other than Republican, I guess it was Bob Barr when John McCain was running against Barack Obama in 2008. Wasn't that Bob Barr that ran as a libertarian? I voted for him.
That sounds right. I'll check.
That feels right. I've chosen not to vote in a couple of elections where Republicans were obviously going to win for personal reasons. But other than that, so, I mean, my bona fides are well set. I don't have to reassert them. What is being is Donald Trump? And I would ask 1063, and I asked him this question directly. He's not responded. Is Donald Trump a real conservative? Because Donald Trump last night said that he agreed with abortion in the case of a mother's life, rape, or incest, and that he had some disagreements with fetal heartbeat bills that went as early as 5 weeks. I think that's a reasonable position to take, but it is a line in the sand for a lot of conservatives. So does that mean Donald Trump's not a real conservative? Or that you wouldn't vote for Donald Trump?
You were right about Bob Barr.
Was I right about? Thank you very much. I'm right more than I'm wrong. Not always, but often wrong, but never in doubt, as my friend Jay St. Clair would say. I think we get into a lot of danger taking purity tests between ourselves, and we lose sight of the ultimate goal, and that is to advance an agenda that brings us back to an America that we love and can believe in. And I think that's the answer that Donald Trump gave last night in his town hall on the issue of abortion. I thought it was a masterful answer, that you have to win elections first. And if you lose elections based on your point of view and where the general population is, you cannot advance an agenda that will incrementally get you to where you want to go. My grandfather said it, that he'd rather have half of something than all of nothing. Well, do you want half of something or do you want all of nothing? If you want all of nothing, I'm probably not your guy. If you want to grow conservatism or libertarianism around the state of Tennessee, I'm probably your boy. Speaking of growth, we're going to grow this show exponentially by 2, as a matter of fact. 2 representatives from the House have stopped by, and we will speak to those individuals coming up in just a moment. It's Capley and Barrett, which sounds like a law firm, on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Wrong, and that Trump and his executives improperly inflated property values, and that his company is innocent. The New York's Attorney General seeking $370 million in penalties. ABC's Aaron Katersky is outside the courthouse and has more on Trump's comments during the proceedings.
He attacked the Attorney General of the state of New York, Letitia James, saying that he's a victim. He said this state is vicious. It doesn't give me a jury. It takes away my rights. Trump said this is a fraud on me. What happened here, sir, addressing Judge Arthur Engoron, is a fraud on me. And he said it's partially election interference. So he completely ignored the judge's prior admonition to stay away from politics and the campaign and injected it straight away in what amounts to his closing statement to the court.
Efforts to reach a bipartisan deal on a spending package continues on Capitol Hill. Each day a new wrinkle, this time conservatives upset with the new GOP House Speaker.
House conservatives are angry that Speaker Mike Johnson struck a handshake deal with Democrats to keep spending levels for this fiscal year in line with an agreement reached by his predecessor, Kevin McCarthy. Conservatives huddled with Johnson in his office to lay out their demands for spending cuts and border policies that Democrats who control the Senate would surely reject. A partial government shutdown deadline looms a week from tomorrow.
ABC's Stephen Portnoy. Secretary of State Antony Blinken held meetings in Egypt today, wrapping up his Middle East trip aimed at keeping the Israel-Hamas war from spreading. Before returning to Washington, Blinken says talks with Arab leaders and Israel were productive.
They're also clearly prepared to take steps to do things, to make commitments necessary both for Gaza's future and for long-term peace and security in the region.
You're listening to ABC News.
The Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief, located in Franklin. One of the first sponsorships of the Matt Murphy Show was Dr. Gill. Why? Well, a couple of reasons. One, he's a longtime sponsor on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Number two, I had back pain, and I needed someone to help me with my back pain. And so I went to Dr. Gill, sat down with him, eventually was examined by Dr. Wendy, and we went to town, man. I had a couple of compressions, one in my upper neck that we've completely solved. I thought I had radiating pain in my shoulders, and I thought it was stress-related. I thought it was muscular in nature, and so I was getting, I was doing massage and anything to alleviate the pain. I found out that it was a compression in my upper neck that was causing the pain, and after a series of decompressions, it's gone. I mean, I don't have to deal with it anymore. My back pain, my lower back pain is going to be a little more of a long-term deal, but let me thank Dr. Gill and all of his techniques, because I don't have to take pills anymore. I don't have to worry about pain pills and how that gets you fuzzy. I don't have to consider surgery, and that's the ultimate goal, right? To avoid surgery, to get rid of the pills, and to get back to a natural, pain-free life. The Dr. Gill Center can do that for you. So give him a call today and schedule an appointment. 615-882-4838, 882-4838, or the Dr. Gill Center in Franklin. Stop by and see them. Tell them Matt Murphy sent you to Dr. Gill in Franklin and the chiropractic center of choice. It is Super Talk 99.7 WTN, just after 1 o'clock. Good afternoon. Welcome in. Let me clear my throat here and get ready to go. 2 more hours to go as we continue discussing the issues of the day. Obviously, the General Assembly back in session this week. I like to say hold on to your wallets, especially when I have representatives in the studio. We'll get back to Trump last night. I thought he was masterful. If you watched it, I would think that you would agree, even if you are left of center. You have to agree the man was on point last evening. He seems like he's ready for the game. He believes 2024 is here. The calendar shows it, and it's time to get going with policy perspectives and policy positions. And I thought he was on target last evening. Forget the destruction of his I mean, he can talk about Joe Biden and his infirmity till the cows come home, but he laid it out for us in a way that clearly defines the issues moving into 2024 nationally, and that's the economy, it's border security, it's energy, and it's eliminating foreign entanglements or the possibility of wars that do not advance America's interests. That's what Trump's all about. That's what's on the ballot in 2024. Democracy, as a matter of fact, is not on the ballot. Democracy is the ballot. Anybody that tells you democracy is on the ballot, they don't know what democracy is. Anyway, thank you, Joe Biden. That said, we're going to shift our attention to state politics for just a moment and welcome back to the show Representative Jody Barrett of the 69th District. He joins us this afternoon to talk about the goings-on of the first week of the legislative session, and he's brought a buddy. He's brought a friend, and I already like him better than you. Hey, Jody, how are you?
It's not hard to find somebody you like better than me.
That's true. I like you, and you know that. What's going on, man? You doing all right?
Oh, doing great.
I want to give you the opportunity to introduce our guest, whom I just met moments ago.
Yeah, so brought one of my fellow freshmen, the actual youngest member of the House of Representatives, Mr. Kip Capley.
Kip Capley,
yes,
everybody.
Sir. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate
just
that.
Just me? Thank you. Thank you. It's not just me. So when he says young, you're representing the 71st District,
yes,
right? That's we were just talking about this during the break. Tell me where that is.
It's the western portion of Murray County, the northwest chunk of Lawrence County, all of Wayne County, and part of Hardin County.
And how old are you?
I'm 26.
26 years old.
Yep.
You were called to public service. Why?
Mm-hmm. I just wanted to create a difference. I was in my community, and I really wasn't thinking about serving, and I noticed that there were some other gentlemen that got in the race, and I wasn't comfortable with them representing my family, and I had a conversation with my mom and dad and said, I'm going to put some feelers out there and see what's going on, and if I lose, I was 25 at the time. If I lose, nobody's going to look at the young man like he didn't try, and we tried and won. So,
what was the response when you would go around the district and when people found out? I know from personal experience in my world, right? When I started talk radio, I'm 50 now. When I started, I was 26 years old. Mm-hmm. And I had a lot of 50-year-olds that would call me on a regular basis and tell me that I'm still wet behind the ears. I don't know what the heck's going on. Give it 10 or 15 years and I'll figure it out. Did you get a lot of that when you were running?
For sure. All the time. It was constant. I got kids older than you. I got grandchildren that are older than you are. Why do you think you can do this, right? But I just, I'm very conservative. When as soon as I open my mouth, they get it. I feel like they do. I don't want to sound boastful, but
I'm going to tell a little secret about what just happened, and I don't think Kip will mind it. So we were talking, we were getting to know each other right before we came back on air, and I said, "What in the world did you get into politics for?" And we've got a picture of Donald Trump in the room, and he pointed and said, "That guy."
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Right? I mean, because I think he's opened the world to a lot of eyes are open to the possibility of the fact that they are more conservative than they think. I mean, we have it drilled into us when we're 20, 21, 22 that you got to be, if you're young, it's cool and hip to be a liberal. Yeah. Sadly, that doesn't work in the real world. And it's the old Churchill quote that if you're under 30, if you're under 30 and conservative, you don't have a heart. If you're over 30 and liberal, you don't have a brain.
Was it Churchill or was that Reagan?
I think it was Churchill.
I think it was Churchill.
Okay.
I think Reagan probably repeated it. Yeah,
well, everybody quotes Reagan all the time.
So you're just an early bloomer.
Yeah, well, I got tired of being spoon-fed everything in college, and thankfully I've got a good family behind me that instilled some core biblical beliefs in me. And when that didn't line up, I was like, this is not right.
What are the big issues that you were running on? What are the big issues that your district talks about as the session starts?
Yeah, transparency for sure. The Second Amendment. Obviously, lower taxes. Abortion was a big one. I'm a big pro-life guy. I got a personal story behind that. Those are some of the big ones. The marquee. So for my district, right, super conservative. We're 82% Republican with a Democrat challenger, and it's a really conservative area. A lot of rural folks. Big ag area. People want to make sure that the money that they're spending that goes to the state.
You guys seem like real conservatives down there, not like up there in that big city of Dixon. A bunch of liberals are
real purple in Dixon County. Real purple.
Yeah. Stoplights come up and people have problems. They're like, whoa, now I don't know.
Hold on now. We don't want to be the big city.
That's right. That's exactly right.
I think 2 lights are just fine.
That's
Thank
right.
you, Kip. Let's move on. You mentioned transparency, and I have kind of combined what might be separate issues. And I understand, and I have to say it, I know that it's kind of weedy, but I love this stuff, right? And I feel like some of your colleagues on the Republican side are kind of falling prey to traps that are being laid by these Democrat chaos makers. And one of them involves transparency in committee. And maybe I'm wrong. I mean, you guys tell me. I don't have issue with procedural votes happening on voice at all. I wouldn't have a problem with final passage of a bill coming out of committee by roll call. I know that now it can pass through voice vote. At the same time, I understand the concerns of leadership. I understand that they don't want to bog a session down and keep y'all there till middle of June or whatever. That's a waste of the taxpayer dollars. Let me start with Jody. Yeah. Where are you on this committee issue and this? I mean, because there are some outsiders that are saying that Republicans are not being as transparent as they should.
Well, in my experience in the short year that I've been up there, I don't think I've ever had an issue with being able to have my vote recorded. If a committee vote goes against the way I was voting on a bill, it's very easy for me to just get the attention of the clerk and say, hey, thumbs up, thumbs down for me on that one. So I can have my vote recorded however I need it to be.
Right. The way that they do it, and it's a little difficult to explain on radio, but it makes sense to me once I had it explained to me. It's a voice vote, and if it's obvious, the chair notes that, the ayes have it or the nays have it, and you are presumed to be in the prevailing vote, meaning you're presumed to be on the winning side of the vote unless you ask the clerk to note it. And then it's recorded that way, right?
That's correct.
Correct.
Yeah, 100%. And it's not hard at all.
So even if there are some no's vocalized and the chair calls it for the ayes, unless you go tell the clerk that you are a no vote, it'll be recorded as a unanimous. It just says that the ayes have it.
Right.
And so if you feel strongly enough that you want the record to show that you were opposed to that bill, then all you have to do is let the clerk know.
So, for example, using you two gentlemen in the room with me, if we were a part of a committee and God forbid, and I mean that literally, God forbid, the issue of abortion come up in a committee, and somehow they said, we're going to legalize abortion again in Tennessee, and they vote that out, and that's voted correctly. I would expect that Kip and Jody would stand up and go, hold on a second, you need to note me as a dang no. Because
absolutely.
For sure. Well, right. and even on the non-controversial bills, and Jody can attest to this. All you have to do is go, hey, and just get the clerk's attention and give them a thumbs down, and that's it.
A hand signal.
5 seconds.
It's not a very difficult
Yeah,
process.
right.
It's very simple.
So do you have an issue with the rules that are as they exist right now?
I do not.
I don't either. No.
So on the floor is getting a little more attention because obviously that's more visual. More people see what's going on the floor, either through video or in person. And you put out something yesterday, Jody, and I just want you to walk through how you got your hands on it and what it indicated to you, because the minority party, the Democrat Party, they have, 24 members in the House?
That's correct.
That's right.
Yeah.
And
And they are just screaming about not having a voice in
they're being shut
the
down
process.
and shut down, and it's fascism. They can't. Their voices being silenced. All of that. Yes. So you're referring to a tweet yesterday where I put out the list that was actually compiled by the clerk's office at the request of our caucus, because this conversation, this narrative, has been created now for quite some time. And I want to give all credit to Representative Jason Zachary, who stood up and presented this on the floor in debate. That, look, the narrative that's being put out there is not accurate. 9 of the top 10 people speaking for number of minutes speaking on the floor are all Democrats. 3 of the top 4 are the 3 that are complaining that they're being silenced all the time.
Well, I got the list here. Let me just run it down. So understand that you have the Democrat Party, and you have the usual suspects. I call them the Bullhorn Brigade, right?
Yeah.
Johnson, Pearson, and Jones, along with J.R. Clemens and some other Democrats, are just screaming about how this isn't how democracy works, and you guys are being authoritarians, and the majority party is just running roughshod over them. I just want to read the list. So the top 10 speakers in the last calendar year, the first year of the session's 2 years technically, right?
Correct.
Correct.
So the first year of the 2-year session, the top 10 speakers are, now y'all tell me Democrat or Republican, okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right,
Sure.
so I'm just going to, Pearson,
Democrat.
okay. Number 2, Clemens.
Democrat.
Number 3, Jones.
Democrat.
Number 4, Johnson.
A Democrat.
Number 5, Hardaway.
Democrat.
Number 6, Powell.
A Democrat.
Number 7, Mitchell.
Democrat.
Number 8, McKenzie.
A Democrat.
Number 9, Parkinson.
A Democrat.
Number 10, Lamberth.
Our illustrious Republican leader. My man.
So the number 1 speaker for the Republicans is the majority leader, who's, part of his duty is to get up and speak on certain matters. So you would expect that he would be, I would expect him to be in the top 3.
You would think he would be absolutely in the top 3. He's the one that, yeah, exactly. You would think that would be correct.
So the Democrat, this is brilliant. The Democrats, while they claim that their voices are being silenced, of the top 10 speakers in last year's legislative session, 9 of the 10 are Democrats.
And some journalists went ahead and compiled all of this together so that we could see collectively Democrats and Republicans, and the Democrats collectively are still speaking more than the Republicans on the House floor.
Despite the fact the Republicans, 2-1, 3-1?
I want to say, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think mine was less than 8 minutes.
75 Republicans to 24 Democrats.
Well, I think, Kip, you only speak when you have something to say, right?
That's exactly right.
As opposed to what they're trying to do.
When Kip Capley talks, people listen.
I appreciate
That's what I'm
that.
told. That's what I'm told. That's what I was told by Jody right before you came in. He goes,
Solid
"You better
information.
listen," because he's a tall drink of water. He'll
That's
rub-
right.
It's good to have the bigger guys on your side, right?
Hey, when you're horizontally challenged, you got to make sure you make friends with the big guys.
So speaking of having big guys on your side, can we tell this story that you told me before you came on?
Sure.
So apparently Justin Jones doesn't like being touched.
By me, in particular, apparently. So we had a little, I wouldn't even call it an altercation. We just had a discussion this morning. How about that? It's very common to walk around the floor and shake hands, pat guys on the shoulder, on the back, whatever, and say, hey, good morning. And so I was walking out of the little side room there where you get coffee and where Justin's desk is, and just touched him on the shoulder and said, hey, Justin, good morning. And he recoiled immediately and said, don't touch me. Kind of balled up his fist a little bit. And so I touched him again and said, hey, man, what's wrong?
Are you? Yeah, everything okay over there? You
And,
need to talk?
And he started going off about something about Twitter and me playing games with him on Twitter or something like that. And I just looked at him and said, buddy, you have some serious mental issues that you need to work on, and walked off at that point.
So you were walking, I guess, to your desk, or you were walking away from and you just kind of casually, like we all do in our offices or in our businesses or whatever, at church or whatnot, you just kind of brushed him on the shoulder, say hello.
Good morning.
And his response was, "Don't touch me."
Don't touch me, Jody.
Well, that's good. That's good. It's good to know you've got, you got that
We're very close.
colleague dynamic going on.
Yeah, they're very close. Yeah.
There's a lot of screaming and yelling, and I kind of dispatched of this yesterday. Look, people can decide for themselves whether they like the rules or not, but the fact of the matter is the House of Representatives sets the rules. You guys set the rules.
It's a democratic process for which the rules are put in place. We have a vote. The rules are discussed, debated, bipartisan. Members of both parties are on that subcommittee. They're voted on, and then they're presented to the entire body and voted on again.
How much discretion in your experience, and I know that it's relatively limited for you two because you're freshmen, but how much discretion does the speaker have? It feels to me, as I watch on television, as I go down to the gallery, and I've been down several times and watched, that he's kind of like the umpire, that he didn't set the rules of the baseball game. The baseball game rules were set by the members. He's just the guy that's got to call the balls and strikes. And you've got one team, the Democrats, that are attempting to constantly exploit the rules, then complaining that they're getting picked on.
Right.
But the only reason they're getting picked on is because they're the ones that are exploiting the rules.
The difference is that the Speaker of the House, an umpire is selected by the league and chosen. The Speaker of the House is selected by the players. We elect the Speaker, so we put him in that position.
Yeah.
We gave him the authority to run the show, and he's just doing what we've asked him to do.
And I will say this, he has given them much more leeway than he gets credit for. He lets them he's very gracious. He's a lot more gracious than I would be.
He's trying to give them just latitude.
He's given them a lot of latitude. He's given them he's done an excellent job in that regard, I think, in my opinion.
Have any of the rules changed from, this year to last in the General Assembly?
Through some of the package that was put in place for the special session after all of the brouhaha that we had at the end of the spring session, some of that has carried over. Some of it's been fine-tuned a little bit. And all of the new rules and things that we've put in place have been taken from other states around the country and Congress. So it's not like we're pulling these rules out of thin air to come up with some way of shutting these folks down.
All right, so just to help understand, when we talk about time speaking and this is floor time, how does that work? So there's a matter before, help us laymen understand, Kip. How does it work? Something comes up, and does anybody get a chance to speak on it if they want to?
So once the bill sponsor has explained the bill, then obviously the floor is opened up for questions or responses or however you want to look at it. Generally what will happen is someone will raise their hand and try to get recognition from the speaker. Whoever the speaker sees with their hands raised, he has a little notepad, and he jots down names of people who want to talk. And then whoever raises their hand, he calls on them. They get 2 minutes to speak. You can talk about whatever you want about the bill. You can ask questions. You can take the full 2 minutes. You can take 10 seconds. You can take 5 seconds, however much time you want to take. And then that would allow the sponsor of the bill, the person carrying the bill, to respond. And then they would respond, and it goes back and forth. But you have 2 minutes now, right? Correct, Jody?
That's correct.
2 minutes now, right? In that time frame to get your question out and get a response. And then it's over.
And if I feel like I'm a representative, let's say I'm, oh God, I hesitate doing this. Let's say I'm Justin Jones.
Oh.
And I know it's rough. So neither one of you touch me while I'm Justin Jones.
You have a better beard than
I tell you what, I've got it. I should have done that. I'm going to take a break. Bell says I got to take a break, and I'm going to decide to be somebody other than Justin. I'm going to be Gloria Johnson. So my pronouns are she and her when we come back on Super Talk 99.7 WGN. Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy, and I want to tell you for a moment about Kraft Body Scan. They're new to Nashville, and I'm so excited because I got to watch as the construction of their facility was happening right in downtown Nashville, right near where all the medical plaza is. But the Craft Body Scan facility is new, but the technology has been going for some time, and they've advanced this technology to the point that I want to tell you all about it. These are CT scans that you can do for your heart, for your lungs. You can also do a full-body CT scan. And this modern technology and modern way of looking inside of your body can detect issues before you know that there are issues going on. I'm talking about heart disease. I'm talking about lung cancer issues. If you get the full body scan, they can literally do a digital colonoscopy, so they don't have to do anything interior in your body. They can do all that exterior to your body. Now, you have to do some of the same process and techniques that a colonoscopy would entail, but it is not as invasive as your traditional colonoscopy. I mean, all of these things are available to you. And right now, in 2024, as a way to introduce themselves to you, they're offering a heart and lung scan, not just for you, but for your significant other, your spouse, for $149 for both of you. This is a value well in excess of $2,000, available for $149 right now at Craft Body Scan. Go to craftbodyscan.com to find out more. That's craftbodyscan.com, or give them a call today at 615-436-1000. 436-1000. I invite you to do this. I've done it, and I absolutely love it, and I strongly encourage you to do it. Get in front of your health with Craft Body Scan. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. A few more moments with Kip and Jody. That's Kip Capley and Jody Barrett. 71 and 69, respectively. I think I got that right.
Yes, sir.
I'm very proud of myself. So I was going to be Gloria Johnson, and I was going to try to figure out. So if I'm Gloria Johnson, I'm not going to do the voice. I started to do the voice. I'm not going to do it because we don't have time. If I get my 2 minutes out and I don't feel like I fully understand, can I get back in line?
You can go to the back of the line, just raise your hand again, and he'll put you at the bottom of the list. And if the question doesn't get called before you get back up to the top of the list again, you'll have another opportunity.
So does the speaker have certain levels of is the discretionary power involving what is on topic versus what is off topic?
That is the speaker's job to call balls and strikes.
Okay.
Now, if the speaker calls you out of order under the rules, you can object to that and ask the body to vote on it, which we just had that happen on the very first day with our friend Representative Jones. And once again, he was called out of order. There was an objection to that, and then we had a vote, and the body voted to decide whether or not he was out of order or not.
And you cannot make disparaging comments about anyone, any part of the body, or really anyone. No. Like, you can't point out somebody in the gallery and say, that guy's ugly. I mean, that's going to be called out of order too, right?
Frowned upon in this establishment.
I would think so.
And also, too, you got to remember, this is not the first time these bills are being heard. All of these bills are coming through committee, and there's an extensive process, and we hash it out and fight it out in committee before they even hit the floor.
They just, I mean, largely they just have their lips pooched out because they're in the minority, and they don't like being in the minority.
It would be very difficult to be one of 24 people trying to get to 50 votes when you know you have to get 26 folks on the other side of the aisle to come along with you. And there's only, there's two ways of approaching that. One of, I'm going to actually try to go get those 26 votes, or I'm just going to throw up my hands and decide that there's no way I can win, so I'm just going to pitch a fit.
Mm-hmm. So let me talk in a couple of minutes. Hopefully we can have some of these visits again. I wanted to primarily talk to you about the speaking time issue, which I first saw on your Twitter feed, Jody, and I thought it was hilarious. But the gallery issue, right? There's a lot being made of this, and I think it's being misrepresented in the media to the point that I talked about it yesterday, and I had people even after the show saying, why don't you think that people should be able to go into the gallery? On the East Gallery is open to the public, first come, first serve, every session, correct?
Correct.
Wide open.
Okay. And it makes sense the way they're doing the West Gallery with the ticketing process. And as I described it yesterday, the caucuses, the Republican and Democrat caucus, will handle their allotment of tickets.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
Each member has a ticket.
Mm-hmm. So if constituents from down in Murray County call Kip and say, hey, Kip, I got 4 of my kids, we homeschool, we want to come see how the sausage is made up there. That would give you the ability to check the schedule and figure out a day for them to come where they know they'll be able to get in.
Yeah, and all I would do is call our caucus chairman and say, hey, I need X amount of tickets. And he says, okay. And
the staff would call around and get tickets from cobbled together.
I mean, you kind of collect them, and you kind of it's a shared collective.
Prime example, yesterday, or maybe it was the day before yesterday, I had a representative from Hamilton County. He came to my office, said, hey, I've got some constituents that came all the way from Hamilton County. Can I have your tickets? Yeah. I didn't have anybody there.
And each representative has a ticket per day.
Correct.
In their allotment. And that's on the media side. The media is also on that side of the gallery.
And once again, that idea we didn't pull out of the air. That comes from Congress. If you go on Congress's website and check the rules for how to get into the gallery, it's a ticketing process.
That's right.
Yep. So.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's free. I mean, and when people heard tickets, they thought that there's no charge. And if you want to come day of, all you got to do is come early and get in line on the east side. But that's first come, first serve. This is to prevent people from coming from Bristol or wherever and driving all that way and not having access to the facility.
That's correct. So somebody always has a place to sit.
Real quickly, because Bell's telling me we got to go, I'll start with you, Kip. What's if you had to pick one bill that's a priority, one bill that you want to see more than anything?
I've got one that I'm getting ready to file right now that if you assault a police officer, a nurse, or a member of our emergency medical services, that's going to be a felony.
Is it not?
No.
Okay.
Class C felony.
I agree with that. What do you got, Jody?
I've got a red flag preemption bill. So Oklahoma has what they call an anti-red flag law, which is not really what it is. But essentially, in order to keep, since we did not do anything in special session that some of the folks on the other side of the aisle wanted us to do, this bill would preempt those decisions to the state level and prevent Shelby County or Davidson County from adopting their own red flag ordinance. So we end up with 17 different rules for folks across the state. So my bill will make it where only the state legislature has the ability to make laws on that subject matter.
Can you ask them real quick where they stand on Lambert's bill for making child rape a potential capital case?
Yeah, this is a bill that we talked about yesterday where William Lambert was on with us, the House Majority Leader, and he wants to make rape, potentially, rape of a child punishable by death. Where are you?
I'm for it.
Yeah,
I'd like to see the language. I mean, I haven't read the
Right,
bill, but
sure.
as the concept that you just described, absolutely. If you're found guilty of that egregious offense, I think you should be put to death, personally.
Yeah, I don't think that there's going to be a whole lot of pushback on that bill other than the mechanisms for how it gets established. So I think we'll want to see how that proof gets put into evidence in order to determine whether or not, because it's hard to get somebody under 12, a child under 12, putting them on the stand and establishing that evidence for whether or not the rape happened and how it happened. So we sort through those issues. I have no problems with the sentencing side of things.
I love it. All right, let's do this again, gentlemen.
Yeah,
thank you for coming by. Appreciate you, Jody, as always, and thank you for bringing somebody taller into the studio with us.
So from the movie Twins, I'm Arnold. I'm Danny DeVito. This is Arnold Schwarzenegger.
He's got more hair than Arnold.
That's true.
It's fading. It's coming back a little bit.
I got a sponsor for you. I'll talk to you about that later.
We'll talk about that after the show, baby.
Thank you to Kip and Jody, good representatives both. We'll be back in just a moment on Super Talk.
Go.
You know, for a hot minute there, the sales tax exemption on gun safes went away. But our good legislators in the House of Representatives and the Senate saw fit to get it back in place in the state of Tennessee. And I'm proud to tell you, the one and only place that I would recommend that you go to take advantage of that sales tax exemption is Nashville Safe House. Mark and his team are great at what they do. Mark learned early on, and he's been in business over 30 years now. He learned early on that there was as many people as there are in Tennessee, there are different ideas about what type of safe you want. And so he wanted to make sure he had a safe for you in stock so you don't have to wait for it. You don't have to wait for it to get delivered. He will deliver it to you same day in some circumstances. And you can pick the one that's right for you, and you can see it with your own eyes. You can kind of get a look for it. Now, if I offered you any advice when it's picking out a gun safe, is buy bigger than you think you need because you're going to fill it, I promise you, and you don't want to have to re-up that thing and trade one in to get another one. Buy bigger than you think you need and buy the brand that you want, like Browning, Fort Knox, Champion, Superior, Rhino, all of these available at Nashville Safe House. Go to NashvilleSafeHouse.com or see Mark and his team in person, 4th Avenue South in Nashville. It's Nashville Safe House. Super Talk 99.7 WTN, Matt Murphy and you. Man, oh man, I have several times today, I've pumped open the microphone and I've had to kind of clear the throat, an extra throat clearing.
You got the Rona.
I had to clear the throat, and now I'm noticing a little nasal congestion.
Got the Rona again.
You think I do?
Third time.
Did I get it twice? Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I did. I got it once in the camper. I got it.
And when you're on that road trip with your brother.
Yeah, but I didn't miss a day of shows.
Well, yeah, but you still had it. That's why you were having to work from home.
Well, that's right. A couple of days from home. So that's true. I have had it twice. So, I mean, I don't know. Third time's the charm. Did you see that Howard Stern got it?
Yes. In fact, I was listening to one of his quote-unquote COVID shows, and man, how the mighty have fallen.
All of these people lying through their teeth. And this leads me to a Fauci discussion. By the way, look out on the hotline, anticipating a call at some moment. I think there he is, from Greg McElroy, who is a former Alabama quarterback. He was he was with the NFL for a number of years as well. And Greg is now a talk show host in Birmingham, Alabama. You see him on the SEC network. He is a known commodity as a play-by-play. He's one of the best play-by-play, or rather I should say, he's one of the best color guys in the business right now. He is he was a quarterback in the National Football League, selected by the New York Jets in the 7th round, played a number of years there, obviously played for the Alabama Crimson Tide. He worked and played for Nick Saban. And I wanted to ask him what he felt like the overall. I mean, it's hard to get a 50,000-foot view in 24 hours, less than 24 hours after one of the Mount Rushmore figures of the sport announces that he's going to step down as head coach. But Greg McElroy from WJOX in Birmingham, you see him on the SEC network, you see him on ESPN, you see him on ABC. Greg, I'm not buttering up to you when I tell you that I think you're the best analyst in the business going right now. And it's not just because you called me back and you're on the show today. Hey, Greg, how are you?
Hey, Matty, buddy. I'm sorry about the chaos. As you can imagine, it's like between talking to sources and shows, and it's like drinking water through a fire hose, all while still trying to process. I mean, look, he's alive, he's healthy. I mean, but it's kind of a bit of a grieving process, knowing that my alma mater is undergoing a significant shift, and the only coach that I've known in my adult life is no longer there. I can't pick up the phone and go to practice. I can't pick up the phone and check in. It's hard. It's really hard, but I'm really optimistic about, he's earned this. I mean, he's earned this freedom and this flexibility, and I couldn't be happier for him. So it's just a very, very bittersweet day, and it's kind of hard with the range of emotions that you're kind of feeling right now.
Well, and I noticed that. I saw some video from Tuscaloosa last night where folks had gathered outside of Bryant-Denny around his statue, and it was almost wake-like. But I get it. I mean, everybody knows that he's going off to a good retirement. He's going to spend time with Miss Terry. But if you're an Alabama Crimson Tide fan, I'm not, but I can recognize this. If you are, and no matter what happened, this season, a great example, Greg, no matter what happened, you knew that you had the best guy on the sidelines, the best guy in the film room in the history of the game, most would say, to lead you through it. And what a masterful job he did, and almost reached the pinnacle with another national championship. So it's got to be a little discombobulating to know that you don't know what's coming next for Alabama.
It is. I think that's the toughest part, is the fear of the unknown. And look, there are a lot of great candidates that are really interested with pretty good knowledge of what's going on and what the process might look like of figuring out who the next guy is going to be. There's a lot of really good candidates, and it's a really attractive place. And look, you have the two best coaches in the history of the sport that both coach at the same place. I mean, it's not by accident. The place helps. They help put it over the top, no doubt about it, and the sustained excellence that they both had with Bear Bryant and Nick Saban is unmatched. But I do think there's a lot of optimism about the next guy. But, yeah, I mean, there's only one Nick Saban. I mean, nobody is going to adequately fill those shoes. But then again, in 2007, I would have told you that never in a million years, as a player that was on that team, never in a million years did I think anyone would come close to what Bear Bryant did. And not only did Nick Saban match, he surpassed Bear Bryant in excellence and consistency. So that's in an era when there's scholarship limitations and every school has resources. I mean, back in the day, it's like there's 4 programs on TV and you can take 17 quarterbacks a year if you want. So that's not taking anything away from what Bear Bryant did. He dominated an era that was different. But to know that you had an advantage over every single team for the last 17 years based on who your head coach was is a comforting feeling as a fan. But, it's unsettling right now. But at the same time, it's also excited about what could come and where the program might go from here.
As someone who is so close to the program, who has that level of access to the program, and as someone who played for Coach Saban, did the timing surprise you?
No, because it's really been kind of a merry-go-round the last 4 or 5 years. You hear buzz during the season, hey, this could be the end. This could be it. And then at season's end, it's like, all right, business as usual. Here we go. But this year it was a little different. There were people in his inner circle that were saying that Coach was tired, more tired than he'd ever been after a season. He had a remarkable coaching job this year. I mean, to get them where he got them is remarkable. But he was tired, and I never, ever, ever heard him describe himself as tired, ever. The T word is like, you don't say it, ever.
Right.
So that caught me a little off guard. So at that point, I was like, man, maybe he'll announce, leading up to the Rose Bowl that this is it, or I just wasn't sure. And then they lost the Rose Bowl, and then I thought, all right, well, he's going to want to go out on top. He's probably going to come back. And then you find out, Matt, that he's conducting coaches' interviews to fill vacancies on his staff. He had a coaches' meeting that ended at 3:55 p.m. Central Time yesterday to fill his wide receiver coach's vacancy. And he told the team at 4 o'clock p.m. that he was going to retire.
5 minutes later.
You want to talk about waiting to the very end and working to the very end.
He's working today, right? He's at the facility today, it's my understanding.
Yeah. Well, I think he's just trying to give the players some closure.
Sure.
And kind of assist in the transition period that's about to ensue. So I think today was more administrative. Maybe he's getting a lump sum payment on his state retirement. I don't know. But today was more, I think, about tying up some loose ends, and yesterday was more, I have to be abrupt and I have to be swift, and I'm going to leave into the darkness. So I think today is more, a formality of closure as opposed to, getting anything done on the ground.
I'm a Bulldog, and the day after the SEC, or a couple of days after the SEC championship game, I said, and I've said this for years, that the same thing that makes it feel so good to win is what makes it feel so bad to lose. And so the emotions of college football, whether they be good or bad, that's one of the things. It's the primary reason we love college football, because we all feel a part of something. So that precludes my question. A lot of Alabama fans are kind of looking around the rest of the SEC and going, why are you guys so happy? They're acting as if it's wrong for the Georgia fan, but I think it's a testimony to how good a coach Nick Saban is and was, that fan bases around the SEC and around the country are thinking, you know what, Coach? Congratulations. Happy retirement. Awesome for you. Glad to see that you've decided to do so. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I think you're right, for sure. But Alabama, look, if we're nothing else, and I'll put on my crimson-colored glasses and shirt for a moment, like, we absolutely have a bit of a superiority complex. We only celebrate in our own success. We don't really bask in the glory of others' failures. And I know that's not universal. Like, I'm sure there's plenty of people that are fired up when Auburn loses every week. Like, I'm sure there's a million of those, but I do think the outspoken majority, it's counterintuitive to celebrate another shortcoming for some, not all. But yeah, I mean, if I were another fan base, like, I'm now rolling the trees at Toomers. That's a bit much.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
But I think for a Georgia fan, from your perspective, Matt, I mean,
thank you, Coach. Thank you, Coach Saban.
Kirby is unequivocally, the top dog, no pun intended. So I certainly understand the sentiment.
So 2 final questions. I know you're so busy, and I so appreciate you spending some time with us. Greg McElroy is with us, obviously, with the SEC Network, ESPN, and he hosts his own show at WJOX down in Birmingham with Cole Kublik. I should say that, other Cole will get mad at me. So, Greg, how much do you think the changes in the game affected the timing of this, if at all?
I think you'd be naive to think that it didn't accelerate things. Perhaps the days are longer, and there is a little bit more hands-on as far as administratively. You just have to be more hands-on as a coach, and players have options now. So I do think the monotony of preparation is something that Coach Saban thrived in, but the monotony of having to talk guys into why they need to be where they're at is something that probably over the course of time wore him out. And I get that. I mean, shoot, I have a player on the roster, and Coach comes from an NFL background. Like, people forget that sometimes because he's so synonymous with the college game. But if he were to say take the head coach job of the Tennessee Titans, he doesn't have to go and convince Will Levis to stay on the roster this year. Like, Will Levis is under contract. He doesn't have to go and talk, Jeffrey Simmons into sticking around. Like, he's under contract. And I don't know the Tennessee Titans roster, but I'm just trying
you just named 2 of the biggest names. No, that's exactly right. Yeah, I get it.
So he might have to talk Derrick Henry into staying. So I guess that's a unique scenario. But he wouldn't have to do that on a week-to-week basis and on a year-to-year basis. So I do think the challenges of getting guys to buy in is harder now because guys have options, and there's financial incentive to potentially go elsewhere.
Final question, looking forward, I think you could count on one hand the number of college football coaches that would dismiss a conversation about the University of Alabama. I think Kirby's one of them at Georgia. I think there are some others around the country. But Alabama is a destination. It is a landing spot for somebody that wants to finish their career and potentially do some magical things within the coaching community. So it feels as if the Crimson Tide kind of the world is right there before them. What are your thoughts on where they're going? What are you hearing?
Well, look, I'm privy to some information. So in an effort to, be political, if you will, probably appropriate. How can I answer this question without saying anything of significance?
This is what we do every day, Greg. You're like a politician.
Exactly.
That's good. Yeah, that's good.
That's all it is. Let me just filibuster my way into the top of the hour hard out. I'll just do that. But here's what I would say about the next coach. One, I think the next coach is going to have. I'm not sure he's necessarily going to be young, but I think he's going to have a youthful energy. Coach Saban cited the fact that he was tired and the days are long, and that ultimately was exhausting for him. So I think whoever comes in is probably going to be young and a relative up-and-comer that's super hungry. I think they're probably not going to deviate too much from what's allowed Bama to be successful for a very long time. So I don't envision them, going and hiring some offensive-minded guy that's going to run, crazy tempo, Mike Leach, air raid principled offense. I think you're going to have a multiple offense. I think you're going to have a group that, prioritizes complementary football. And I think on defense, you're going to have an NFL-style defense. So whoever that is, I think they're going to have the qualities of a young head coach that's an up-and-comer, but at the same time has enough skins on the wall to garner immediate national respect. And then I think another part is they have to be pretty good on the recruiting trail. I'm not saying they have to be Nick Saban on the recruiting trail because they might not have as much to sell as Nick Saban had, but they have to know how to develop guys, and they have to be able to make sure they articulate that message when they're on the trail and visiting with young players that are considering their school. So I'm thinking young coach, innovator, but not a guy that's going to do too much, and a guy that's going to kind of change the way the game is played. And I think it'll be a coach that kind of resembles from an identity standpoint, offensively and defensively, what's worked there in the past.
Greg, great stuff. Thank you for giving us a call on what is a crazy day for you and your world. I appreciate you spending some time with us in Nashville, and we'll get together very soon. Take care, man.
It's always a pleasure, Matt. Thanks for having me.
There's Greg McElroy. He is with the SEC Network. He's with ESPN, ABC. You see him on the in the booth. He's got a showdown in Birmingham and an absolute he knows. I bet you that Greg knows who's going to be the next coach. I would be willing to bet you that. And I did not press him on that because, frankly, that would be unfair to him.
Well, he can't tell you.
No, but you heard what he said, is I'm privy to certain information that I can't talk about, so he knows some things. You know what? I would be willing to bet you I'd bet you dollars to donuts that this week, by this time next week, I think they have their coach right now.
Yep.
They're just
I would be willing to bet you that I'm going to kill you if you don't get a break.
well, okay then. Later on this evening, I'm going to be on with my boy Steve Abramowitz in Mill Creek View. That's right. Later on tonight, and you can find out more by going to mcview.us. That's mcview.us, or finding him on the socials. Mill Creek View, and Steve Abramowitz does great work. The Tennessean describes him as a conservative advocacy podcast. I would describe him as a conservative, certainly, all-around good guy, and knowledgeable as the day is long about all things politics here in the state of Tennessee, Franklin, and beyond. So I want you to stop by mcview.us, find out more about Steve and what he does on his podcast, or listen in. They're found on Deezer, iTunes, iHeart, Spotify, all your favorite apps where you download podcasts. You can also find them on Rumble Video. It's not just about politics. They do a lot of politics. They also do authors and arts and culture and entertainment and sports and so much more. It's the Mill Creek View Tennessee podcast. And don't forget, later on today, I think it's 4:30 or thereabouts, you can find me right there, my pretty face, on Mill Creek Views. Mill Creek View Tennessee podcast, mcview.us. Super Talk 99.7 WTN winding down hour number 2. Hour number 3 yet to come. We'll get into Donald Trump's performance last evening. I thought it was excellent. And also commentary on the latest from Anthony Fauci. Potentially, I always call Dolly Parton the best human being on planet Earth. Anthony Fauci might be the worst. He might be the worst. I'll tell you what I mean in just a moment. Right now, News Time with Mac Maury and Super Talk 99.7 WTN's News Closet right now.
Two o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Currently 57 degrees in Nashville, a beautiful day. This weekend, though, could be full of chilly weather, showers, and maybe even some snow. Weather forecast coming up in a couple minutes. Former President Trump, at the conclusion of his New York civil fraud trial, defying the judge during brief comments in court. Here's details from Aaron Katursky outside court in Lower Manhattan.
He attacked the Attorney General of the state of New York, Letitia James, saying that he's a victim. He said this state is vicious. It doesn't give me a jury. It takes away my rights. Trump said this is a fraud on me. What happened here, sir, addressing Judge Arthur Engoron, is a fraud on me. And he said it's partially election interference. So he completely ignored the judge's prior admonition to stay away from politics and the campaign and injected it straight away in what amounts to his closing statement to the court.
And the judge has already found Trump inflated his net worth to secure favorable loans and insurance. The former president spoke to press after the trial, and he said it's a shame that something like this is able to happen. A fatal crash in Tennessee. 61-year-old Daryl Miller was killed in a two-vehicle hit-and-run crash last night. It happened at Gallatin Pike in Walton Lane when Miller was driving north and got hit by a vehicle that was headed southbound. The driver who fled the scene is described as a younger Hispanic male who had a possible bowl cut hairstyle and was wearing a red hoodie, black pants, and appeared to be 5'8" to 5'10". And anyone with information about his identity is asked to call Metro Police Fatal Crash Investigations Team. And the Securities and Exchange Commission has approved Bitcoin's ETFs for real this time. Here's Dave Packer.
The official announcement from the SEC comes on the heels of a Tuesday tweet that showed up on the personal account of Chairman Gary Gensler that appeared at that time to announce the approval of a Bitcoin ETF. It hadn't happened yet. Turns out that it was put out by someone who hacked into Gensler's account. Following the fake tweet, the price of Bitcoin spiked before settling back. The SEC and FBI are investigating.
And the SEC's greenlighting of Bitcoin's ETFs will allow more liquidity by trading a fund that tracks Bitcoin without actually having to buy the cryptocurrency. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy, and if you think that the only time that you can change health insurance coverage is during, quote, open enrollment, then I've got some news for you, and I hope you listen up. Pat David is with Your Health Plan Man. He is your health plan man. And I want to talk to you about this for a moment, because if you pay for your own health insurance, if you're looking for coverage, do not go online for quotes, and understand something, that you can get additional coverage. You can change coverage right now. Your Health Plan Man's Freedom of Choice plan, as a matter of fact, puts most of the coverage up front with no deductible. You pick your doctor. It's 30 to 60% lower cost than even Obamacare, which is oftentimes it leaves a little to be desired, and there's far too much government control and influence. Well, this plan is available all year round to those who qualify. They have nothing to do with your income, so there's no surprises at tax time, and you shouldn't pay for government mandates that you don't need, and you don't have to with this plan. Talk to Pat and his team about the plan. If you're paying for your own health insurance, if you're on COBRA, if you're uninsured, call Pat Davis and his team at 855-4-PLAN-MAN. 855-4, that's the number 4, PLAN Man. Let me just do it out numerically. 855-475-2662, or go to yourhealthplanman.com, yourhealthplanman.com. It is Super Talk 99.7 WTN 205. Welcome back in. Matt Murphy and you until 3. We'll hand off to Brian Wilson at that time. Brian Wilson, who is busily preparing his journey to Iowa. I don't know if I want to be Brian or not. You know, actually I do know, and I'll tell you my process here. This morning I was thinking about his travels, and I thought about how much fun that would be. And by the way, there's some news to come regarding the RNC and Milwaukee, Wisconsin, that I'm going to share with you at a later time. A lot to be decided between now and then, but trust me when I tell you that Super Talk 99.7 WTN, we will bow to no one in terms of our coverage of these types of events that are very, very important to you, your family, and America's future. So there's more to come on the RNC front. This is a big deal. I mean, these are the first votes that will be cast in the primary season that will be 2024, leading to the general election in November. And Brian's on top of it. He's all over it like fresh fallen snow.
Can I embarrass myself?
Yes.
Could you explain the difference between a primary and a caucus?
I can. Let me finish this thought, and I will.
Okay.
Caucus, I got to look a couple of things up, because the difference between a caucus and a primary is simple to understand. The caucuses are a lot different. So this morning, I'm thinking to myself, why didn't you go to Iowa? Now, one, I didn't think about it. And I think that Brian is he is like a hound on a scent when it comes to this type of thing. And if I know anything about Brian in the time that I've gotten to know him, I know that. And so I have no question who went to who with regard to conceptualizing this idea. Now, maybe Dan went to Brian. I don't know, but Brian's all over it, right? I think it was probably Brian going, hey, man, I need to get out there. I need this in my life. I need to inject it in my veins. And that's all well and good. And I'm kind of that way, too. Now, I've not been a part of that process the way that Brian has. I think he said yesterday on the show 10 separate presidential elections. That would be 40 full years. I guess I'm starting in 92, so 92, 96, 2000, 04, 08, 12, 16, 20. Oh, man. Ooh, I'm 8. Yeah. Anyway.
That makes me feel old, doesn't it?
Makes me feel as old as Brian Wilson. I'm saying that in hopes that he's listening. Anyway, and I'm like, man, I bet that's going to be a ton of fun. You know, you load up the truck, you get going out to Iowa, you make your way out there, you get to a caucus site or two, you talk to the people, and how fun would that be? And then I heard something he said yesterday, and I looked it up this morning. Do you know what the temperature? He has said this on several occasions. Bell, have you heard what the temperature is going to be Monday?
Yeah, it's actually in the promo where he's talking about potential regret for the idea because it's supposed to be -3.
That's not a low.
Oh, that's the high?
Mm-hmm.
Brian, enjoy.
I assumed that was the low. Apparently, the high temperature, I suppose this is Des Moines. I'm going to say Des Moines because it's the only town I know. The high temperature in Iowa Monday is going to be -3. I can take the cold as good as the next guy, but man, oh man, that's rough.
That's not cold. That's assault by weather.
So the differences between primaries and caucuses, and I don't pretend to know this as much as Wilson would know more about this than me, but I think I'm going to get this right. Primaries are run by government. Primaries are conducted. Obviously, they are party functions, but they are run by state and local government. So voting happens through ballot. We all know the primary process because we go through it, right? But you don't have to participate in the primary as it is a party function in order to participate in the general election. Same with caucuses, but it is a party function that is run by the government. There are two types of primaries. There's closed and open. We have open primaries in the state of Tennessee, in as much as you don't have to declare party affiliation in order to decide to vote in a particular primary. You are expected to be consistent in terms of voting in a primary versus a runoff, et cetera. But in closed primary, you have to declare and register your party affiliation in order to participate in the primary, and in an open primary, you don't. Caucuses are different. Caucuses are private meetings or groups of people that get together. They're run by political parties. They are held at a variety of different levels along state government, in the county level, district levels, precinct levels. The participants within a caucus, and once again, I am sure of the way primaries are run, Bell, but my caucus knowledge is pretty surface level, that these are gatherings. When people get together, they decide to go to a particular caucus, and they divide themselves into groups in terms of the candidates that they then support. And the voters in each group determines how many delegates each candidate has won in the caucus. So you can lobby to get people into your group prior to dividing or subdividing into groups. So there's more jostling for votes in a caucus. So it is a very open format. And if you're standing in the room and you divide in a group, you know who's who. As opposed to a primary where you go in and it's a very individual and singular event where you vote for who you want to vote for, and then off you go. I think I've described that correctly, and I'm certain of this, that if I have described it incorrectly, that someone on the Super Talk line will let us know. Real quick, because I don't want another day to go by before I stress how much I despise Anthony Fauci. Donald Trump was asked a question last night about Anthony Fauci, and he was dismissive of Anthony Fauci as a significant player within his administration. I think Donald Trump is, how do I put this? Donald Trump is being selective in his memory as to what Anthony Fauci meant or did not mean with regard to his administration. I don't believe that anybody gets in front of the decision-making of Donald Trump. However, Donald Trump had to lean on those that he believed to be experts in the field at the time that COVID-19 came up. I don't know that any of us anticipated COVID-19 before it happened. There are some that would like to rewrite history and suggest they knew exactly what was going on, exactly the time that it happened, exactly at the moment in March and April when all of this started coming down and the shutdowns began happening. And there are very few among us that can suggest that they got all of this right. I am not making the perfect the enemy of the good with regard to Trump's relationship with Anthony Fauci, but I do think that he relied on his expertise and did not have an awareness of his partisanship until late in his presidency. And I believe that's a fair way to put it with regard to Trump and Fauci. I was looking, I thought I had this pulled up, and now I have lost it. I had the clip where he answered the question about Fauci. I'll find it and play it for you in just a moment because we're going to talk about Trump's evening. And it was a pretty good evening for Donald Trump last night at his town hall event with Fox News. What Trump said when asked the question, said, well, and he said, well, yeah, I mean, I had a group of people. He wasn't significant. He wasn't a significant voice in the room. He was there. He was a part of it. He'd been there for 40 years, but he wasn't that significant. He became much more of a bigger player and a much more of a decision maker when Biden took over. And on that, I agree. A lot of us were calling out Anthony Fauci long before Trump left office. And many of us were very concerned with how Joe Biden would interact with Anthony Fauci. And our concerns were valid. Because Anthony Fauci, there is no more pompous example of a government bureaucrat with a God complex than Anthony Fauci. Anthony Fauci totally botched America's response to the AIDS epidemic. Y'all know that, right? Anthony Fauci was with the NIH then, the National Institutes of Health, and he completely botched it. Reagan took a lot of the blame, but it was Anthony Fauci on the decision-making front that botched our government response to HIV and AIDS. Now, Anthony Fauci, having had retired, is testifying behind closed doors on Capitol Hill. Earlier this week, Monday to be precise, Fauci said over 100 times that he did not recall or did not remember important information in conversations relevant to the origins of COVID-19 and the U.S. pandemic response. Now, let's be clear. Why do I believe that Anthony Fauci is such a disgusting human being? Because I think he killed people. Is that clear enough for you? How can you say that, Murphy? Let me explain. Anthony Fauci knew about the gain-of-function research that was going on at the Wuhan lab. Okay? Anthony Fauci was told during the Obama administration that we could no longer, in our laboratories in the United States of America, engage in and fund gain-of-function research here in the States. They stopped it. And so the funding moved overseas. And with it, the control moved overseas. Like Donald Trump, I don't know that I believe that this was an intentional release, but it came from the lab. Trump said last night, well, I don't know. I don't know if it was intentional. What I think is, a scientist left the lab, went home, hugged his wife, smooched on her. She keeled over. She's dead. And now here we go. And I don't think that's wrong. Now, I understand many of you believe that it was an intentional leak, and I can appreciate that. I can appreciate that. But as Trump said last night, it was most certainly the China virus. More specifically, it was the Wuhan virus. We were told we weren't allowed to say that lest we be xenophobic or even, dare I say, racist, but that's exactly what it was. For our entire lifetime, for the life of medical science in the history of studying viruses and virology, we have identified viruses by their location of origin. Yet we were told not to do that during the China virus or during the Wuhan virus or the Wuhan flu. Because, racism and liberals. Trump did it, so it had to be bad. I do believe that Anthony Fauci knew, and evidence points to, we have email evidence and other documentation and eyewitnesses that indicate that Anthony Fauci knew exactly what happened and where it came from, and he lied. Now, even Anthony Fauci apologists have to acknowledge that he lied. He did. They would tell you that he lied for good reason. They didn't want to cause a panic. They didn't want people to freak out. I don't care. A lie is a lie is a lie. And he told a whopper. And I believe that his lie led to people being a little bit laissez-faire with regard to how they handled grandma and grandpa with regard to COVID-19. COVID-19 was never going to be a threat to able-bodied people 30 years old who did not have pre-existing conditions or anything that would compromise their immune systems, ever. But it does affect those with compromised immune system, and it would affect, much like the flu, it will affect those elderly in our community more greatly than it's going to affect me as a 50-year-old man, non-smoker, or whatever. But what Anthony Fauci told us early on in 2000 was that this was a bat meat problem. And I've long maintained, for years I've told you, Anthony Fauci lied to the American people, and the American people believed him, and we took it on face value that it would not be coming here, because guess what we don't do? We don't eat bat meat. I believe the United States didn't concern themselves with grandma or grandpa or auntie or our uncle who perhaps had immunity issues or a pre-existing condition, because it's a bat meat problem. It's a China problem. And by the time we realized we were being lied to, it was too late, and millions of people died around the globe as a result. Yeah, I do believe that a lot of people died from the Wuhan virus. And yes, I believe the vaccines happened too quickly for my taste, as long as we're on the subject. And yes, I believe that they lied to us about the efficacy of the vaccine on purpose, to further subdivide the United States of America and to politic an issue that had no business being politicked. Anthony Fauci says that he doesn't remember most of any of this. House Coronavirus Select Subcommittee Chair Brad Winstrup of Ohio said in a statement, "The face of our nation's response to the world's worst public health crisis does not recall key details about COVID-19's origins and pandemic-era policy. The potentially preventable pandemic ultimately resulted in the deaths of nearly 1.2 million Americans." I don't know about the figure, but be that as it may, the bottom line is this: Anthony Fauci is continuing to lie about his role in all of this because of his God complex. He knows exactly where this came from. He knows how it happened, and he continues to lie about it because, you know what? My grandfather always said, you guys love me telling stories about my grandpa told me when I was 15 years old, you don't have a good enough memory to be a liar. You better figure out a different way, because you have to remember a lie. You don't have to remember the truth. It's fascinating. The truth just comes to you. You either think, well, I don't remember that, or, oh, that's what happened. You have to remember what you told when you told the lie, and you have to remember the lie that you told to cover up the lie, and the lie that you told to cover up the lie that you told to cover up the lie. And Anthony Fauci's told so many whoppers at this point, all he has left is to say that he doesn't remember when you know damn well he does. And he ought to be in jail. But that's not the worst of it. That's not even the worst of it. The worst of it coming after the break. Because Anthony Fauci has an idea or two about all of you parents that are concerned about your children's education. I'll tell you what that idea is in just a moment. It's 2:23 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, folks, it's Matt Murphy. Efficient heating and cooling is on my mind today because of all of the temperatures that we're seeing drop around the country, and that is coming to Middle Tennessee. So if you're concerned about your heater, you need to go ahead and call Jeff Eddy in Efficient Heating and Cooling. Allow one of his team members to get out. I bet he can do it jiffy quick, like before the weekend even. And by the way, if you have a heater issue, if you have a heating problem and it goes out on you in the evenings or on the weekends, you don't have to worry, because Jeff Eddy's not going to charge you extra just because it's the weekend. You pay the same rate during the day, during Monday through Friday hours as you would on the weekends or in the evenings. That's just the way that they do their business. It's how they keep their invoices low. Keeps that invoice down because he knows you're on a budget, and he understands that when he's trying to fix your unit too. So if he can get more life out of it, maybe another season, he's going to do that. Otherwise, they're a diamond contractor with Mitsubishi Electric, an Elite Pro partner with Rheem. They're ready to replace that unit right now if that's what you need, and they'll tell you the truth about the matter when they come out to see you. So if you're not running efficiently, trust me, folks, it's getting cold. I think highs Monday or Tuesday are like 19 degrees in these parts. We need to have that heater running as well as it possibly can. Let's call Jeff Eddy, an Efficient Heating and Cooling. I like to say, if your heater's not ready, call Jeff Eddy. Give him a call at 615-784-4424, 784-4424, or efficienthvac.net.
We hear from Donald Trump as he spoke to reporters that were gathered outside the courtroom during his civil fraud trial. 2:30 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
227. By the way, several of you that are able-bodied folks, and McMurray, don't go too far. I want to ask you a question unrelated to the current subject. Several of you are responding by saying, well, this isn't true because I was 48 years old. I was able-bodied. I ended up in ICU. Look, I'm not making a blanket proclamation about everyone. I am suggesting what the data tells me. I'm stating what the data tells me. And the data tells me if you are able-bodied and 48 years of age, the likelihood of you getting seriously sick from contracting COVID-19 was minuscule. That doesn't mean that it's zero. I often say that. You know, the possibilities are slim, but that doesn't mean they're zero. That means there is a possibility. So there are some out there that I would call the exception that proves the rule, meaning the rule is what it is, but there are exceptions to it. It's not hard and fast. So, I mean, obviously at Super Talk 99.7 WTN, we're very, as a family, we're sensitive to this. I wasn't here at this time for obvious reasons, but we lost our own Phil Valentine at the age of 61 from COVID-19. That said, there are plenty of people that we lost that we shouldn't have lost, but the vast, vast, vast majority of able-bodied people between the age of 15 and 50 and beyond, they're going to be A-OK with regard to COVID-19. It makes them sick. I mean, very much like the flu. McMorey, if you had to guess who the next head coach of the University of Alabama is going to be, I wanted to ask you this earlier, and I want to ask you this before your newscast, and we'll get back into Fauci content in just a moment. Who would it be? I mean, if I made you, I mean, you're a noted sports aficionado, dare I say expert. You got this podcast going on. It's Behind the Bleachers, or I don't know, I forget what it's called. What is that called again?
I don't think he remembers.
It's Behind the Box Score, and actually the first episode under the 104.5 The Zone umbrella will be released today within the next hour. So,
ooh, so all ready to go, all packaged up and ready to launch?
Yeah,
Look at
ready
that,
to go.
man. Some serious self-promotion there. Who knew he had it in him?
And dare I ask, Matt, where can we find that if we wanted to download and listen at our leisure?
Well, anywhere you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, go to 1045thezone.com under their podcast. You'll see me under that umbrella. And, you'll see my beautiful logo Behind the Box Score with a cartoon face of me with football, basketball flying over me. It's fun. It's good stuff. We have a good time.
It looks like the same guy that did King of the Hill drew your...
Yes.
It really does.
Very similar animation.
Okay, so if you had to guess, purely a guess, I think it's already been decided. And I have a guess as to who it's going to be. And I can't even remember the guy's name, but I think I know who it's going to be. And it's not going to be Dan Lanning, because I think Dan Lanning took his name out of the running earlier today, right?
He did, yeah. He made a video. He made it into a recruitment pitch for Oregon, pretty much. Like, hey, I'm not leaving. I'm here to stay, and this is what we're building here, which honestly got me hyped. If I'm an Oregon fan, I think there are great things to come. I would have said him yesterday, but today, I mean, Sarkisian.
I think Steve Sarkisian is one of those few handful of coaches that is just, he's off the board.
Yeah.
Now, I could be wrong. He's been there. I mean, he helped Saban over the years, as did Kirby Smart. I think Kirby Smart and Steve Sarkisian are in situations with blue blood programs that are on the come, as they say. I think they're off the board, but I don't know. I could be proven wrong.
So is the name you think DeBoer? Is that his name?
Yeah.
Washington's coach?
Kalen DeBoer.
Yeah, Kalen. Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
I have some insider information.
Ooh.
I do. Actually,
so you're saying
you
I
know
should.
You know what that means? That means I listened to a podcast this morning. That's exactly what that means. I wanted to listen to yours. I was looking for it. I'm like, why hasn't his podcast dropped on this huge platform? And so I had to go to somebody else. Kalen DeBoer.
Yeah, I like that.
A name unfamiliar to me, but Washington Huskies head coach took his team to the national championship game this year, lost to, obviously, the Michigan Wolverines, but I think that's a name in the hopper.
Some of these names in the hopper, though. Lane Kiffin, Dabo Sweeney. No, stop.
If I told you had to pick Kiffin or Sweeney, who would you pick?
Kiffin.
I would too.
Absolutely Kiffin.
I think Dabo Sweeney. I think the bloom's off the rose there.
Yeah, Dabo. Yeah, I agree completely. That's done.
I mean, the man has decided he doesn't like the transfer portal.
No, he doesn't like transfer portal. He doesn't want to work with NIL. It's like, okay, so you don't like the rules.
So
all right, cool.
you don't like college football.
Yeah, you're done. You're out. Okay.
Okey-dokey.
Now, after all this back and forth between the two of you, watch it turn out to be Belichick or Vrabel.
Man, Mike Vrabel.
I know. I thought about that the other day. It's not completely impossible, but also he's going to stay in the NFL, so it is.
But see, I think that blend between the NFL and college is different than it used to be. It used to be a very special case if an NFL coach would go to college. Like, it had to be like a Notre Dame or a true blue blood with a connection to said blue blood. I think that's changed.
I think that's fair.
All right, I think it's fair that I need to go and do news, and you need to do that news right now. It's 2:33 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
$33 minutes after the hour of 2 o'clock, I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. Sunny, 59 degrees, a gorgeous day in Nashville, dangerous wind and dangerously cold weather, though, on the way this weekend. Weather forecast coming at you 2 minutes. Closing arguments today in the civil fraud trial in New York City that involves former President Donald Trump. After the proceedings, Trump spoke to reporters gathered outside the courtroom. Here he is discussing why he thinks this is all really happening.
What I did, nothing wrong. What he did, a lot of people say substantially wrong. You can't have two tiers of justice in this country. But no, I want to go to all of my trials. These are all set up by Biden and the Democrats. This is their new form of cheating. This is, like last time, this is their new form of cheating. So far, I think it's gone very much against it.
And the case against an Ohio woman accused of mishandling fetal remains after a miscarriage has been closed, and the woman cleared of all charges. Ann Flaherty.
A grand jury on Thursday decided not to indict Brittany Watts, the 34-year-old Ohio woman who was charged with mishandling fetal remains following a miscarriage. The case had drawn national attention after her local hospital alerted police that she had miscarried a 22-week fetus at home. The police had taken her toilet into evidence and charged her with abuse of a corpse. The case is now closed.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Hey, folks, it's Matt Murphy for the world-famous clock store. Have you been by? Have you seen the world-famous clock store? Do you understand why they call it world-famous? I do, because I've been. And I've been to a lot of gun stores in my time, and there is the biggest and there is the best, and its name is McGill's world-famous Glock store. Friends, you got to go to see it for yourself. The incredible retail space, the number of short guns, handguns, I should say, that they have in stock is just insurmountable. I mean, nobody has more. They've got gunsmiths on site regularly, I mean, all day long for your help, to help you in whatever endeavor you're looking for. Secondarily, they've got gun ranges, not gun lanes, gun ranges for your practice, and that is what it is all about. We talk so much about how important training is toward being a safe and effective gun owner. I want to mention to you the Sentinel Challenge, the Sentinel Training Challenge from Shoot 270 is going on right now. There are limited numbers of spaces for the Sentinel Training Challenge. It's an indoor range. The Shoot 270 range is incredible. We talk about it all the time on the show. This is an immersive training experience within Shoot 270 designed to advance your skills in crisis response and active shooter scenarios. It's happening at the beginning of February, limited to 18 people. So for complete information or to sign in for Sentinel, go to shoot270.com. That's shoot270.com. For anything else, go to glockstore.com. And more importantly, get out there and see them for yourself. Airlane Drive, just off of Elm Hill Pike, the world-famous Glock store. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Matt Murphy and you until 3. We'll check in with Brian Wilson, see if he's got his warm weather gear. I hope he's got his flannel underpants on, or at least he's got his flannel underpants packed as he's heading out to Iowa, where it will be a high of -3 Monday. That's what I saw. High of -3. Hard to believe, but true. And Brian will be all over that. And thanks to Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air, and to the Charlie Daniels Journey Home Project for supporting our effort to get Brian on the scene. He's going to be reporting all day long from Iowa and the caucuses that will be happening Monday evening. 241 Super Talk 99.7. Here's that clip I was looking for. Donald Trump last night at his town hall talking about Anthony Fauci.
And of course, Ron DeSantis would definitely argue with your characterization of how he handled it.
But if you go back and look at the records, you will see that the biggest fan of Dr. Fauci was Ron DeSanctimonious. He was a big fan. He said, I go by, exactly, quote, I go by what Dr. Fauci said. He said that 2 months in, all the way through, and then eventually changed when it wasn't, that wasn't the dessert of the day. But Ron DeSantis was a big Dr. Fauci fan, and nobody wants to cover that. I say it every time.
I believe in Donald Trump. I believe that Donald Trump will be the nominee. I will support him. I loved what he had to say last night. I thought he did a great job. One of the weakest arguments that he has involves Anthony Fauci. I do not, like some, blame Donald Trump for being sucked into this guy's world orbit. I believe when you have something like this happen, obviously, Donald Trump's not an expert. I'm not an expert. You're not an expert, even though you've been online and you've read a couple of things, read a couple of articles about COVID. We're not experts in this field. Anthony Fauci was presented as one. We all now know that Anthony Fauci was a bad actor that started out lying to us, and I'm certain that he lied to President Trump. And so I give Trump a certain level of latitude when it comes to this issue. That said, he's not entirely he's cherry-picking moments in time to make it seem like Ron DeSantis was caught up with Fauci and he wasn't. Everybody was on the front end. Now, I thought Ron DeSantis did fine in Florida in terms of shutdowns or lack thereof. This is probably where Trump is weakest in the primary, is his handling of COVID. This is just my analysis, folks. I'm not anti-Trump. I'm telling you what I believe. Handle it or don't. But Donald Trump is on the economy strong. On business and letting the business of business be business and all of that, strong. Energy, strong. Already proven it. Border security, nobody stronger. Nobody stronger. Foreign entanglements, strong. Foreign policy, strong. the issue of COVID is where there are legitimate criticisms in his presidency as to how long he took the word of Anthony Fauci. But as I said last night, as I was reflecting on social media about his performance, which I thought was A+, it's not going to matter. It is not a big enough issue to hurt him in the primary to the point that he's not going to get the primary nomination. And once the general comes around, let me tell you something. Joe Biden's not coming after Donald Trump on his handling of COVID. You know why? Because that brings up Joe Biden's handling of COVID. And if Donald Trump, if there are ways that we could criticize how Donald Trump handled COVID in 2020, let me tell you something. Biden was exponentially worse. He took all of the good things Trump was doing and trying to do with regard to alternative medicines and different things you could do exterior to the fast-tracked vaccine and destroyed that and mask. And I mean, everything that was wrong about what was happening with COVID, Joe Biden doubled down on it when he became president of the United States. And all of the good things went by the wayside. So Joe Biden's not going to go after Trump. So I don't believe this is going to hurt from a political perspective in the general election whatsoever because Joe Biden can't touch the issue. It's a third rail to him. And it will not hurt Trump enough in the primary election to make a difference. Speaking of last night, Donald Trump also had this to say with, well, I'll just let you hear from him.
Who would be in the running for vice president?
Well, I can't tell you that, really. I mean, I know who it's going to be.
Give us a hint.
We'll do another show sometime.
Well, what about any of the people who you run against? Would you be open to mending fences with any of them?
I will. I've already started like Christy better.
Such a good line.
Who would be in the running?
It's such a good line. Did you hear what he said? You missed the laughter because I cut it off too early. Oh, yeah, I'm in. I already like Donald Trump is.
That's a perfect example of how good he is at trolling people.
I already like Christy better. Christy's his buddy now. You know why? Because Christy's not a threat. Understanding Donald Trump is as simple as understanding this. He sees three types of people. You are a friend, you are useful, or you are an enemy. That's it. Chris Christie was an enemy. Why? Because he was a threat. Why? Because he was running for a position that Donald Trump wanted to win. Chris Christie is no longer an enemy. So now he is shifting to a neutral category by which he could change to a friend or change to useful at any moment. No longer an enemy. I've never believed that Donald Trump was a sexist. I've never believed Donald Trump was a racist. I've never believed Donald Trump was a xenophobe. Donald Trump sees three types of people. It's very much inherent within the narcissistic personality, and I don't say that as a pejorative. That's a good thing, or it can be. That is, if you're in my target line, you're a friend, you're an enemy, or you're useful to my purposes. Other than that, you don't exist. You don't exist. Donald Trump seemed comfortable last night. He seems most comfortable when answering questions of the general population. There was a great moment where one of the audience members asked him a question. His name was Robert. And Robert identified himself as a Trump supporter, said he would caucus for Donald Trump Monday night. And Donald Trump said, well, thank you. I knew I liked you. You're a good guy. I knew you were a good guy. And then Robert proceeded to ask him a pretty tough question. And I forget what it was about, but it was a pretty tough question. And Trump was masterful. He said, I'm glad you told me you liked me, Robert, at the beginning, because I might not like your question so much if you didn't tell me that. Like if these guys over at Fox had said it, I might not like it, but I like you and you like me, so I know it comes from a good place. So it's a good question. You see what I'm saying? Robert identified himself as a friend. And so Trump will classify him as friend until proven otherwise. And so he looks at Robert's question then as useful because he's not on the enemies list. Donald Trump also said, I don't get $500,000 for a painting. Maybe I should. They asked Donald Trump about his money made at his hotels, and he was like, look, I put that in a trust. And we were providing a service. We were actually providing rooms and available space for the individuals coming to the hotels. Because the liberal elites are trying to suggest that what Donald Trump did with regard to his hotels is the same thing that Hunter Biden did. And Donald Trump rightly pointed out, we provided something for that money. He provided nothing but crappy paintings that nobody would want outside of the fact that he's a Biden and it buys you access. Like I say, Donald Trump had his game face on last night. It's like he was pacing himself at the end of 2023, getting ready for the real race. He wasn't going to overextend himself and wasn't going to he didn't want to redline his engine too early. But now it's 2024, and it is game on, baby. And here are the battle lines. Economy, border, energy, foreign entanglement. Joe Biden can rail as much as he wants about threats to democracy and all of that kind of nonsense. If Donald Trump sticks to economy, border, energy, foreign entanglement, he wins every day and twice on Sunday. My opinion. 249. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We'll put a wrap on it. Check in with Brian Wilson coming up in a moment on The Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. 2:53, Super Talk 99.7, WTN, winding down our portion of the day, making way for Brian Wilson. We'll talk to Brian in just a moment. Before we get out of here, I want to put some numbers to what happened last night, as one wondered how many people would tune in to the Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis, quote-unquote, GOP debate. They left Vivek off the debate stage. He was very upset about that. And how many folks would tune into the town hall with Donald Trump on Fox News? Now, there was a DeSantis town hall 2 nights ago and a Haley town hall the night before that. They had, the boom, 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 the trifecta. So let me give you the numbers. The raw data has come in, and Donald Trump trounced them last evening. Almost a 2-to-1 margin. 5.7 million by estimate tuned into Fox News. I count myself among that number because I tried to go back and forth, and frankly, I was a little bit bored, and I was excited to see an on-point and on-target and focused Donald Trump. It's like he sees the calendar as like, time to go, baby. 5.7 million watched to Trump, only 2.9 million at the highest viewing point on CNN watched the presidential debate between Haley and DeSantis. By comparison, Donald Trump got 5.7 million viewers last night with that other thing going on CNN. DeSantis 2 nights ago on Fox News, same platform, same time, same format, 3.7 million. So 2 less million people. And the night before that, Nikki Haley in her town hall, 3.0 million people. That, according to Ad Impact viewership estimates for the GOP presidential television event. This is the highest watched event of the presidential season since the third presidential debate on NBC in November. That got about 9 million people watching. So there you go, some raw numbers. Let's get Brian Wilson in here with a drive to preview everything that will be going on. We promised that we would ask Brian about his long underwear, whether he is pack said. Let me tell you something, Wilson. I thought when you were talking about -3, I'm thinking, well, yeah, it's the low. I mean, I get it.
No, that's the high. Yeah. The low is -17. The overnight before it gets to it starts out on that day, overnight is -17 and it rises to -3.
It is one of my favorite promos that I've heard you do in a long time. When you and I could, because I hear the honesty. I mean, it's just so genuine. What have I done?
Yeah, what did I get myself into? The thing about it is, though, I am excited about the trip, and I am excited about going to Iowa. And everybody thinks they know how it's going to go, but sometimes Iowa surprises people. It'll be interesting to see what really happens. I mean, yeah, after hearing from the pundits and the pollsters, it's time to hear from the people, and I'm very interested to hear exactly what happens out there. But also, I think it's very interesting to look to the next step in New Hampshire. And now that Christie is out of the way, if all of Christie's support should land, while Nikki Haley, she could technically, the numbers, the way some of the polls have been running, she might win in New Hampshire. And then it would be a very interesting dynamic. Is she able to parlay momentum in New Hampshire into something else? One of the things that is sort of interesting is that not everybody who wins in Iowa ends up getting the nomination. I mean, there's a whole history of that kind of stuff. Iowa has a way of surprising people. And one of the things that I've learned over the years is that the numbers in Iowa break very, very late. Very late, so you can see tremendous swings in the last moments of the before the Iowa caucus.
I lean on your knowledge and experience. Bill Kay asked me a good question: the difference between a primary and a caucus, and I have a rudimentary understanding of how people, but they gather together in rooms and they talk amongst themselves, and people can be impacted within the caucus room before they separate into their individual groups, right?
That's right. I mean, they have usually what happens in a caucus is that there'll be a surrogate who will speak on behalf of candidate A and B and C, and then sometimes in some of the bigger caucus rooms, the candidate themselves will show up. I happened to be in 2008, I happened to be in the room. It was a church. I think in Ankeny, Iowa, when Marco Rubio marched in and he won the room. When you show up like that, you can really. So if you hit 2 or 3 big places in an evening, and you can time it right and get your logistics all set up to hit 2 or 3 of those, you can have a real impact on the total outcome. Then the numbers get called into a center, and then we end up, that's how the caucus works. It's different than a primary. We actually go to a ballot box and actually cast a ballot.
Yeah, it feels like the primary, whether it's open or closed, it's a more private experience. This is much more open.
And people can be persuaded. You get somebody who's a really good surrogate, people right there on the spot can be, persuaded to change their opinions.
What were your thoughts about Donald Trump last night?
I thought he was pretty good. I've been watching Donald Trump today too, and he's on fire, man. I mean, but think about it. He does this town hall thing, which I'm telling you is no easy feat. It's a thing you got to prep for. It's a thing that you got to stand on your feet. You got to be sharp. You got to deliver. And then he's back in the courtroom this morning and holding 2 press conferences today. So pretty interesting guy. He's got a lot of energy. It certainly is different than the current occupant of the White House.
There's no question about that. Well, I can't wait for Brian Wilson's breakdown and analysis of what went down last night, and looking forward to Iowa this coming week. And obviously, he's going to be all over Super Talk 99.7 WTN in the coming week, and all over Super Talk 99.7 WTN in the coming moments. Right after Mac Morey's newscast, it's Brian Wilson and The Drive. Stay tuned for that. We'll see you tomorrow, folks, for a Friday edition. Until then, so long.